trying to figure out who's talking.
Uh,
You can't hear that. You can't hear that. Oh, people fussing and arguing, but when you get to the point where like nothing's off, like you can't always keep coming back. You can't always apologize. You can't fight. And I think people.
Well, I'm not
are you still hearing?
because everyone's muted, so I'm trying to figure out whose voice that is.
Vernon Reed. Hi, Mr. Simmons.
Okay. Okay, check. We're good. We're good to start, I think.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. Again, this is Linda Chin, your board chair, and I'd like to welcome you to the public board meeting of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners. I think Mr. Gann has already asked you all to mute your phones, and just a reminder that unless you are speaking, please to keep your phones muted at all times. I will start with the roll call for board members, and so I'm going to ask board members to please identify yourselves. And a reminder that as we go through the meeting, I'm getting feedback. As we go through the meeting, to please identify yourself before speaking. Commissioner Bondima?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Present. Thank you. Commissioner Brooks? Did Commissioner Brooks come over with us? Okay. Okay, Commissioner Frank? Commissioner James? Okay. Commissioner McFadden?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Commissioner Reed?
Present.
I see. Commissioner Richardson, has she joined us? Okay. Commissioner Roberts?
Here.
Commissioner Sykes? See you.
Here.
I see. I see. Oh no, I get the wrong Brooks, and I'm present. I'm getting. If I'm doing my count correct, I have 6 present.
Madam Chair, Commissioner James is here as well. Sorry about that.
Okay, so we have 7. Thank you. And 1, 2, 3 absent at this time, right? Okay. Is there a motion to reopen the meeting?
So move, Bondima.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, McFadden.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to reopening the meeting? If not, I will say that that is approved, and we will move on to our items. Thank you. As we begin this public meeting, as we normally do, I'd like to just take a few moments to recognize the passing of 4 city school employees. Tonight, as always, we're sending our deepest condolences to their friends and their families. It's with deep regret that we inform you of the passing of Cynthia Cheney, who served in city schools for 22 years as a teacher, a secondary teacher, and pre-K in various schools. Her last assignment was at New Song Academy. Ms. Cheney departed on November the 10th, 2020, and will be missed greatly by her family, friends, and city schools. I'd also like to inform you of the passing of Antonio Samuels, who served in city schools for 18 years as a teacher, a substitute teacher, as an assistant in special education, and a special education paraeducator at various schools. His last assignment was at Waverly Elementary Middle School. Mr. Samuels departed on November 11, 2020, and will also be missed greatly by his family, friends, and city schools. I regret to inform you of the passing of Conrad Johnson L., who served at city schools for 37 years as a school data coordinator, a supervisor in education building, and a stationary engineer. His last assignment was with the facilities Southeast Cluster Southeast Cluster 4 Department, excuse me. Mr. Johnson L. departed on November 27, 2020. And last, I would like to inform you of the passing of Jerome Felix, who served in city schools for 24 years as a teacher, a special education teacher, a special education paraeducator at various schools. His last assignment was at Joseph C. Briscoe Academy. Mr. Felix departed on November 27, and he too will be missed greatly by his family, friends, and city schools. Please join me for a moment of silence to remember these folks. Thank you. Now, is there a motion to approve the prior open session minutes?
So moved, Bandima.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, McFadden.
Thank you. And those in favor, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Okay. Does Commissioner Brooks join? Okay, so I'll just go. Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes,
Yes.
and I'm also in favor. I haven't missed anyone. No one is opposed or abstaining. So we have 7 in favor and 3 absent. This motion passes. And now is there a motion to approve the closed session summaries?
So move. Robert.
Thank you, Commissioner Roberts. Is there a second?
Second, Bandima.
Thank you.
Okay.
And those in favor, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Okay, James,
Yes.
McFadden,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
and I'm in favor. I don't see anyone else who has joined. So we have 6 in favor. Commissioner Brooks, okay, are you in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. 7 in favor, and for this vote, 2 absent. Is that correct, Mr. Gant?
Correct.
Make sure I got that right. Okay, thank you. This evening, I'd like to begin in my portion of remarks by recognizing our retirees of more than 30 years of service for this month of December. And I'd like to recognize, first of all, Ms. Bernice Kelly. I don't know if Ms. Kelly has joined us. She served for 44 years. She started her employment with Baltimore City Public Schools December 8th, 1975 as an office assistant at the ground maintenance shop. She later was promoted to an office assistant 2 and was assigned to the following locations, which included Marigi Faring Elementary Middle, Hartford Heights, and Special Transportation. Her last position was as a school bus aide for Special Transportation. And as I said, Ms. Kelly served for 44 years and 11 months. I don't see her, but congratulations, Ms. Kelly, and please enjoy your well-earned retirement. I'd also just like to discuss a concern that has been raised concerning the board and board members' attention and during our virtual meetings. There has been some concern about the fact that at times board members turn their cameras off. I want to let the public know that board members, some board members have the same issues that many of our families have in terms of bandwidth with the internet. And so at times they really do need to conserve in order to hear well, and sometimes turning the camera off is helpful to that. I will also say to you that when there are presentations, especially with slides, um, it really is the practice of the board to turn off their camera so that we can concentrate on the slides that are on the screen. And so that you should, if you notice that, that is absolutely the thing that we are doing. But I want to assure you that the fact that board members are present, whether screens on, cameras on, or cameras off, is really the issue that you want to be aware of. We are fully involved and we're fully vested in all of the public meetings and the information and discussion that is taking place during the meeting. I'd like to now acknowledge our gifts and donations. We have a donation of native plants, landscaping materials, and labor worth approximately $1,005.64 from the National Wildlife Foundation, the Mid-Atlantic region, and this was to the Great Kids Farm. We also received the donation of $900 in the form of sponsorships from Constellation Energy to Hazelwood Elementary Middle. Baltimore City Schools continues to acknowledge donors that have made contributions to the COVID-19 Emergency Fund at the Fund for Educational Excellence on behalf of city schools. I'm happy to announce that we've received $20,000 from the Alvin and Fannie B. Thalmeyer Foundation for Devices and Internet. In addition to the emergency fund, board acknowledgement is requested for contributions made by the Baltimore Community Foundation in support of district efforts. The Baltimore Community Foundation, BCF, has granted 3 donations to the Fund for Educational Excellence. For these funds to be released to their beneficiaries, the Office of Communications, Engagement, and Enrollment would like the board to acknowledge the following donations. $20,000 for the Mary E. Rodman School. These funds will be used to implement a series of family and community engagement events to help foster relationships and ensure that the merging families from Sarah M. Roach Elementary School feel valued, respected, and a part of the new learning community formed by the merging of the 2 schools. $50,000 for principal development and pipeline. And these funds will support the Office of Human Capital's efforts to focus on 2 bodies of work in this area: equity-centered pipeline planning and infrastructure and principal coaching. $50,000 for student learning centers. These funds will be used to provide students in student learning centers their own individual kits of necessary school supplies. We'd like to thank the Fund for Educational Excellence for stewardship of these contributions on behalf of city schools. And now, is there a motion to approve the personnel, employment, and payroll, the PEP, and the quasi-judicial matters?
So moved, Robert.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, McFadden.
Thank you. And I'll do the roll call for those in favor. Commissioner Bondima,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks.
I abstain.
Thank you. Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Okay, I'm in favor. Have any other commissioners joined us that I did not call? Okay, we have no one's opposed. We have 1 extension, so we have 6 in favor, 1 abstaining, and 1. Excuse me. Okay, and 2 absent. The motion passes. Okay, I think that I am ready now to turn over to Dr. Santelises for CEO comments. Dr. Santelises?
Great, thank you. Madam Chair, just pulling my, oh, this is what happens. There we go. Good, thank you this evening. I'd like to welcome Chief Grant Skinner for this evening's PEP agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Santelices, and good evening, commissioners. First this evening, Cleo Hirsch, Special Assistant in the Chief of Staff's office, was assigned Director Priority Initiatives effective November 28th. Next, Monique DeBay, Principal at Fort Worthington Elementary Middle School, is appointed Director of Literacy effective January 4th. Nia Berry, Assistant Principal at Fort Worthington Elementary Middle School, is appointed Managing Assistant Principal at Fort Worthington effective January 4th. And Joan Dabrowski, Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning in Wellesley Public Schools, is appointed Chief Academic Officer effective February 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Grant Skinner, for that. And as is our practice, I would like to give a little further information about our new principal at Fort Worthington, as well as our new Chief Academic Officer. So Nia Berry has served the Fort Worthington community for 15 years. She is currently an assistant principal at Fort Worthington Elementary Middle School and has previously served in the roles of English Language Arts instructional coach and classroom teacher. Her teaching career began at Lakewood Elementary School as a member of the 2005-2006 Baltimore City Teaching Residency Winter Cohort. Having begun her career as an early childhood educator, I'm very jealous, Ms. Berry understands well the importance of building a strong academic foundation in a child's earliest years. This is the focus of the work that she has been doing at Fort Worthington and is an integral part of her plan moving forward. We are looking forward to Ms. Berry leading Fort Worthington beginning in January as managing assistant principal. She will follow in very large footsteps of former principal Monique DeBay, who you also heard on this evening's PEP, who will be serving as our district lead for literacy, which is very exciting as well. But I am very sure that Ms. Berry will be up to the task. So congratulations, Ms. Berry. And then I am very pleased to announce that after a long and exhaustive search, Dr. Joan Dabrowski has accepted the position of Chief Academic Officer of City Schools effective February 8th. Dr. Dabrowski brings more than 3 decades of experience as a classroom teacher, literacy and leadership specialist, author, and curriculum writer. Since 2016, she has been the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning in Wellesley, Massachusetts, overseeing all pre-K through 12 academic programming while working closely with the school committee, superintendent, principals, and district leaders to operationalize the district's priorities. Most recently, Dr. Dabrowski co-led the district's reopening efforts under COVID-19, including the creation and management of pre-K through 12 remote learning schools for more than 500 Wellesley students. Previously, Dr. Dabrowski consulted on literacy and leadership at the Education Trust, Montgomery County Public Schools, and here at City Schools. She's also served as Director of Literacy for Boston Public Schools, as well as Cambridge Public Schools. Dr. Dabrowski graduated from Elmhurst College with high honors. She earned a master's degree at the Harvard Graduate School of Education and holds a doctorate of education in K-12 school leadership from Vanderbilt University, Peabody College. Her in-depth knowledge of literacy, as well as instructional leadership, teaching and learning, and curriculum writing and design melds perfectly with the goals of our blueprint. I am extremely pleased and excited to welcome her when she joins us in February. I would also like to take this opportunity to express my deep gratitude and appreciation to Chief John Davis who has brilliantly executed the dual responsibility of serving as the interim chief academic officer in addition to his role as chief of schools for the past 19 months. An awesome burden, even in the best of times, but nearly half of that time has been spent dealing with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. I will say, as someone who was a former chief academic officer in this district, I honestly do not know how Chief Davis has managed it under these circumstances. But I do know that our school leaders, staff, and students, we all owe him a debt of gratitude that really can never be fully repaid. And I am so deeply appreciative of everything he has done and will continue to do on their behalf. City school students and this CEO are fortunate to have a leader of John's caliber. And I will continue to rely on John for his strong leadership, vision, and sage counsel. Next, I am very pleased to share that our very own Louise Fink recently received an important honor. She received the 2020 School Mental Health Champion Award from the National Center for School Mental Health. This award recognizes an individual who has provided exceptional leadership and vision in the advancement of school mental health, a description that, as we all know, myself included, perfectly fits Dr. Fink. Louise was particularly recognized for her pioneering work in creating and leading the expanded school behavioral health program, which, in close collaboration with our university and community partners, provides mental health clinicians in 130 city schools, bolstering and complementing the support provided by our own related service providers. This program has been serving students for over 3 decades, easing students' access to mental health services by bringing clinicians to them rather than making students go out to the providers. Now more than ever, providing our students with access to mental health services is critical. Please join me in congratulating Dr. Louise Fink, who even holds her CEO in check, on this well-deserved recognition for her ongoing service in Baltimore students over the past 30 years. If Dr. Fink is here, we can all give a shout out. I'd like to invite you forward, Dr. Fink, to say a few words. Is Dr. Fink here?
I'm here, but I got put off of there for a minute. We okay now?
We're fine. This is great. Please.
Thank you very, very much. It is a pleasure to be part of this organization and be part of city schools. Mental health has been my passion for years and years. And for me, the honor is an honor to city schools, which have allowed me to grow and progress over the years. Working for people like Dr. Sentelitzis, like Dr. Warren, has also allowed this program to grow and develop. Thank you very, very much. It is always very, very special to share in an honor that really goes to city schools, which was one of the first organizations in the country to have a collaborative program. And thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Fink, and congratulations. Thank you for everything you do on behalf of our students, and thank you for making city schools proud, and congratulations yet again on this well-deserved honor. And then finally, Chair Chinya, yesterday we very reluctantly announced the postponement of the start of all in-person athletics activities until further notice, including in-person conditioning, practice, and competition. This decision was made in close consultation with the Baltimore City Health Department and followed a careful examination of the potential risks and preparation needed associated with in-person athletics. While we are eager to see our student athletes return to play as soon as possible, our priority is to protect their health and safety. I realize that the relationships that student athletes have with their coaches and teammates are often central to their social and emotional well-being and academic success. We will continue to work with our school-based athletic departments and community partners to support ongoing virtual engagement with student athletes and coaches by promoting a sense of community, character, sportsmanship, leadership, citizenship, and academic excellence. Thank you very much, Chair Chinya. That is the conclusion of my remarks for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Santelises. And I just need to take one moment of personal privilege to say that I am so happy and proud of Ms. Louise Fink. I think I've probably knew her my entire career in city schools and beyond, but she is just a gem and has always been there for our families and our students. So thank you, Ms. Fink. And to all those athletes, having a couple of them in my own family, I can understand how you're feeling, but things will get better and we'll all be ready to get out there and compete again in many ways. So thank you. We're going to move into information time, and we have a presentation from the board office on policies BLA, BLB, and BLC. These are policies in the appeals and hearings, and this will be a first reader. Is Mr. Gant there? Okay.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I was saying, give me one moment to get set up. Okay. All right. Thank you, members of the board. Tonight, I'll be presenting on the first reader for policies BLA, BLB, and BLC, which are the appeals, procedures and appeals and hearings. First, just a little background. Maryland law gives employees and families the right to appeal final decisions by the CEO or the CEO's designee to the board. We categorize our policy, this law into 3 different policies. The first is policy BLA, which is the most broad and allows for an employees and families to appeal any final decision. So this includes, for example, contract non-renewals, bid protest evaluations. This is the most broad category. Policy BLB is reserved for the suspension or dismissal of certificated employees only. But as I'll explain, BLB is technically, appeals under this are not technically an appeal, but rather an opportunity for the board to deliberate on the CEO's recommendation. And finally, policy BLC is reserved for students and is to appeal the extended suspension or expulsion of 11 days or more. So this policy was revised in response to an appellant requested to withdraw their appeal after a hearing examiner's recommendation was issued. The board decided to deny that request and then requested that the policy be amended to reflect that decision. So I'll first address the policy revisions that are present in all 3 policies. First, just for some background, appeals and hearings are heard in 3 different ways. The first is an appeal on the record, where there isn't a formal hearing, but both parties, the CEO and the appellant, have an opportunity to submit evidence to the hearing examiner to consider and render a recommendation. We also call it like a paper appeal because, again, there's no live testimony. Everything is done on paper. Second, they are evidentiary appeals, and this is what you would think of as a traditional trial, where there's the hearing examiner plays the role of as the judge, basically, and then the parties are entitled to submit evidence and have witness testimony. And from those hearings, the hearing examiner creates a recommendation to the board, which they must decide and deliberate and vote on. Finally, there's the oral argument, which I'll get into more detail, but this is a spoken presentation before the board only on specific issues in law or policy. And the definitions are consistent across all three policies, but you can find a reference to them in BLA section 3B8C. So first on the appellant case withdrawal procedure. So we instituted which was not present, a procedure for an appellant who wants to withdraw their case. In the case of an appeal on the record, again, which is the kind of paper appeal, the appellant has 10 days after the CEO's response is sent to decide if they want to withdraw their appeal or proceed. And the reason we chose 10 days is this prevents the hearing examiner from beginning work and just incurring unnecessary costs for the district. So again, if there's an appeal on the record, the appellant can decide either way whether they want to proceed or not proceed within 10 days. Similarly, with a evidentiary hearing on oral argument, we set it on 5 days before the hearing. And again, this is this gives the appellant plenty of time to deliberate on which direction they would like to go, but we chose the 5 days to prevent unnecessary costs. We also added a provision on virtual hearings, especially given this environment, just giving us the explicit authority in the policy to hold virtual hearings. Going back to the oral argument, we had a very healthy dialogue about changing the definition, but this definition is more in line with other LEAs. So in effect, if there is, again, a kind of elevated need or a question of law or policy, appellants have a right to have an oral argument directly before the board. But additionally, because Section 202 gives the county board a right to directly hear proceedings, I included a section on having a panel of 3 board members, which would be appointed by the board chair if the board wanted to directly hear a evidentiary hearing. So again, they're added in the policy is the option for board members to hold an evidentiary hearing if they like. But again, it's just changing the definition of oral argument, which was previously very similar to the evidentiary hearing definition. With the policy specific provisions, we added a definition for appeals on the record. Again, that was kind of always present in the policy, but not explicitly defined. So now it is specifically defined. BLB, we removed the appeal references. As I kind of referenced, these are technically not appeals, since the CEO cannot make a final decision on the suspension or dismissal of certificated personnel. Only the board can. So in effect, this is a BL policies. These are recommendations to the board for the suspension or dismissal of certificated personnel, as opposed to BLA and BLC, which is a final decision of the CEO. We also added a section in the policy on the right to arbitration. Again, and this is always present in the education article, not always, but it was present in the education article, but again, the policy was updated to reflect that. So appellants have the right to either go through the traditional, hearing examiner route or board route, but they can also request that an arbiter be chosen from a list from the American Arbitration Association, and go that route. And those decisions are final and binding. Finally, in BLC, as I was looking through reviewing the policy again, I found like a gendered reference. We generally, just as a matter of policy, try to, not have those. And it led me to do some further examination. And there was a previous section that says the CEO may administer oaths unless he is a party to the proceedings. But looking in the history of the policy and the statute, there really wasn't a reference to that. So I just removed that unless he is a party to the proceedings reference. But the CEO administering an oath is still in proceedings, is still in there. So this is the policy outreach that we did. We sent an email, advising all these groups that the policy was revised and asking for feedback. We received feedback from the BTU and AFSCME and PCAB, and I was also able to present the policy at PCAB's November 19th meeting. We didn't receive any feedback from any other groups. So included in this first reader, change since first reader, I want to first thank the BTU, AFSCME, and Local 44 for their suggestions. And what they asked was to include an opportunity for appellants to request that the presiding officer grant withdrawal at any stage in a process if there's a compelling reason. So that section was added. And also building on the feedback from the policy committee, me and my office will be building up the appeals and hearings section on the website and include one like the fillable forms for the Adobe so people don't have to print them out unless there's a signature, and just more information overall on the appeals process for members of the public and pro se appellants. So that is my presentation, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And
Okay.
are there any questions?
Okay. Don't see it. Just a reminder, this was a first reader. So this will be coming back to the board. I don't see any hands up, Mr. Gant, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We are going to, because I'm just looking at time in terms of public comment. So we're going to now hear from the Office of Legal Counsel for Policy GBEH, Legal Representation, and this is also a first reader.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Sivan. I'm the Chief Legal Officer. Can you all see the presentation?
Looks good.
Yes,
Okay, great. So this is a new policy that we're bringing to you today after going to the policy committee. And its purpose broadly is to set forth legal standards that are utilized by the Office of Legal Counsel, and critically also to set forth and clarify the circumstances where board members, employees, volunteers are eligible to obtain legal representation consistent with legal requirements, as well as procedures for legal representation. So we have questions, we have questions raised when we are involved in litigation about when we represent particularly employees. And so we wanted to have one place where employees could go and look and understand the procedures that we use and how all of this works in our legal cases. Going through, there's some background in the policy just about what is the Office of Legal Counsel and what we do that is pretty clear and straightforward. So I'll just quickly go through those. And when we retain outside counsel, just setting forth standards. But the meat of the policy is around the duty of legal representation. So under state law, the duty of representation of lawyers for the system is to the board, and that supersedes the duty that we owe to any individual board member, employee, or volunteer. And this really comes up in the cases where the Board of School Commissioners, as the corporate entity that oversees the schools, is sued. And so this policy aims to just clearly set forth situations where, in addition to the board, we also represent individuals who are named in that action. And it sets forth a process which is pretty well established, but we wanted to actually put it into policy for when an individual is sued in addition to a board member, that we would review, exercise due diligence to identify any legal conflicts. And then if there were conflicts, we take steps to remedy them, meaning a conflict would be a situation where we were concerned that the board member and the board had, but typically it's not the board member, typically it's an employee, where the employee and the board's interests may not be fully aligned in the legal matter. Again, these are setting forth pretty standard procedures for entities like a Board of Education to review cases like these. And then we set forth the standards under state law that are required. So that in small print here, you see the standard that, for board members, legal representation for a board member is required if they're involved in litigation because of their service and in the official capacity as a board member. And then there's a standard for board employees, which are what we call the employees of city schools in this policy, that sets forth clearly the obligation of the system to provide legal representation to an employee acting in the performance of their duties within the scope of their employment and without malice. And then further, this is a point that we particularly highlighted in the policy at the suggestion of our labor union BTU to emphasize the state statute that also says that we provide legal representation in situations when an employee was taking action to intervene to prevent violence on school premises, which includes intervening in a fight that takes place in the employee's presence. And then other situations where we may provide legal representation are set forth in the policy as well. We also provide support if an employee or a volunteer is a witness in litigation or serves as an expert in one of our cases, basically if that is appropriate to the board's educational purposes. And then we also set forth, in addition to legal representation, in certain circumstances where, and we want these to be rare situations where there is a question of liability of an individual, where under state law, there would be a requirement to take responsibility for that liability. And that critically, the board must be joined in a legal action involving an employee, which alleges damages resulting from an act or omission that was in the scope of employment or within the scope of authority, so that we're on the notice about those cases and can provide an appropriate defense. And then it says also that an employee acting within the scope of employment without malice and gross negligence is not personally liable for damages resulting from this act or omission, except as provided by law, and then similar standards for board members and also for volunteers. And this is particularly important. We often get a lot of questions about volunteers and what's the standard. So this language about the volunteers' responsibilities is also set forth clearly here as well. There are some exclusions set forth in the policy, which we can go into in detail, including that this doesn't apply in actions that are initiated against the district by an employee and the like. And it has to be within the scope of employment. I think my colleague, Tamal Banton, is on to present the rest, but since we're going a little earlier, if he's not on, I'll continue here. Tamal, are you here? Okay, we're not hearing him, so I'll start and he can chime in if it's okay, but we were going first or earlier here, so wanted to get through this. So then we turn to the regulation, and this provides just the procedures in terms of what is really important to stress, I think, here is the importance if a employee is sued in their capacity as acting for the district. It's really important for our office to have immediate knowledge of that litigation so we can assess it and make sure that the interests of the district are well represented. And also that service comes through the Office of Legal Counsel, and whether that is a subpoena or a complaint, that we make sure that that goes through our office and others don't accept that as for the legal entity. They can accept if it's in their own name, but we will also accept for them if it's in their capacity, in their scope of employment. That just is what is referenced in these slides. And then this sets forth the specific process we review to determine whether if a employee is sued for something that involves their scope of employment, the steps we would take to make sure there's no conflict, and clearly sets those procedures out. It also sets forth a procedure to be clear that if there is a legal conflict, that we determined to make sure that we have appropriate protections in those situations, both for the employee and for the system, and that also that then if there is a conflict, we could also retain outside counsel to support that employee as they go forward. And so we move through that procedure as well. And then finally, we have procedures if we determine that someone is ineligible for legal representation, which would mean, for instance, if they had been convicted criminally of a crime involving the litigation, we may determine that they're not eligible, but there would be an option for review and appeal ultimately to the board if that was the case. And then also importantly, the policy just clearly sets out the obligation of employees and board members and volunteers to cooperate in the defense of litigation so that we can be appropriately supporting the interests ultimately of our students and our entire community as we work through litigation, seeking to resolve the cases that we can, but if we need to go forward in litigation. And then sets forth compliance, a compliance report obligation as part of the regulation, and then the final slide is we've incorporated feedback because this policy actually started before COVID-19 and then we suspended it and have been reviving it. So we've incorporated comments already from the BTU, as I mentioned before, and we've also sent out for feedback and then presented to PCAB on this policy. So I think that concludes the presentation and available for questions.
Okay. Again, I don't see any hands raised from board members, so thank you, Mr. Sivan. And again, this is also a first reader, so this will be coming back. Thank you. I am going to review at this point the consent agenda. Board colleagues, let me know if you would like to have an item removed, and please remember to state your question so that staff can be prepared when we move to the actual voting to give you some answers for those. I will let you know that I'm pulling 8.05. This is an item that this is the legislative platform, but this is an item that the student commissioner can also vote on for presentation. And we'll also have a presentation. I'm sorry, I need to read that better. Okay. So I will begin with 8.01, which is the FY 2021 supplemental appropriation, building preparation, cleaning, and safety enhancements.
I'd like to pull that, Vernon Reed.
Okay, and your question?
I guess my reasoning is it's just more than an education process for the public in terms of necessity, gravity, and funding.
Okay.
The needs, the gravity, and funding of the project.
Okay, thank you. 8.02, gifts and donations. This is the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools. Okay. 8.03, gifts and donations from Baltimore Ravens. 8.04, gifts and donations, Constellation Energy. 8.06, Local 44 contract extension. 8.07, Edgecombe Circle Elementary School renaming request.
Madam Chair, can we pull that? Just
okay.
For an explanation, or just for a, not an explanation, but just a quick overview from staff, because this
sure.
is voted on to change the name of one of our schools. So I think it's important for us to just hear a little bit more about that before we vote on it.
All righty. Thank you. 13.01, Carry Sales and Services Incorporated. 15.01, Towson Mechanical. 15.02, On-Call Construction Management Services. 16.01, P&A Administrative Services Incorporated. 16.02, National Vision Administrators. 16.03, Care First of Maryland Incorporated. 20.01, the Fund for Educational Excellence, Chicago Parent Program. And 20.02, Panorama Education Incorporated.
Will you pull that one, please, Madam Chair?
Chair.
Okay, I've got that, and I heard two voices. Give me
Yes,
your
Madam
question.
Chair. This is for which one is it? The Panorama? No, the Fund for Educational Excellence. I'd just like some more context and sort of some of the history and the rationale for this particular program.
Okay, so you went back to 20.01.
Yes.
Okay, so you just want some more information. Okay, and 20.02.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, this is Bundima.
Yes.
Sorry, but when we vote for 16.03, do I abstain now or later when we vote?
You need to abstain today, Dr. Bondima.
Excuse me?
So we need to pull that for a vote because you're abstaining.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just for the vote. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Commissioner James?
Yeah, if we could pull 20.02, please. My question, I think it's an important thing for the community to know is happening so parents can figure out how to engage prior to being put in place. But my specific question I'd like is one of the challenges within the district is oftentimes our research relationship with other organizations. So does this platform allow university researchers or other external bodies to be able to have more ease of access to student information that's non-identifying, to be able to create, Christian, I don't know if we can mute people who are online, I don't know if we have that capacity, but there's some background noise. Anyway, so I would like to know if this opens up our opportunities for research and partnership with community organizations in data sharing.
Okay. Got it.
We're trying to work on the muting issue. I'm not sure who it is because I'm showing everyone is muted. So, but I'm trying to work that out now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So again, I have pulled 8.01, 8.05, 8.07, 16.03, 20.01, and 20.02. All right. And I believe I think the special groups are probably here, so I'm going to go ahead and move, if I can, into public comment. We have speakers from 3 of the recognized groups, and so the first, there are 5 minutes for them each. The first person we have is Mr. Corey Gaber, who's representing the Baltimore Teachers Union. Is Mr. Gaber with us? Yes, thank you.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, commissioners. I'd like to go through a series of issues city school staff are facing, issues that the school board and district have the power to address and change. First, certificates are not being renewed by the Office of Certification for erroneous reasons, and the office isn't responding to the most basic of questions in a timely manner. When staff certification paperwork is denied, they aren't receiving an explanation for the denial unless someone from the BTU intervenes to address individual issues. When your future employment is on the line, the most basics of professionalism from management aren't being provided. Second, paying us correctly and according to our negotiated agreements in a timely manner is another way the district can't maintain one of its most basic commitments to staff. It seems that teachers will get their pay updated at the end of next week, 3.5 months after the start of the school year, and even longer since these raises were earned at the end of June. PSRPs aren't going to see their raises until December 24th. The 1.8% raise is due to the contract being ratified late, but the evaluation interval increases could have taken place in August. Accurate compensation and responsive certification are two expectations educators have whether there's a pandemic or not. When the district can't take care of paychecks and certificates, it makes educators understandably wary when it comes to safety expectations in a pandemic. Baltimore City's transmission rate greatly exceeds the highest level posted on the decision-making tree that is supposed to guide school reopening and closing decisions, with a 6.7% positivity rate and 36.6 new cases per 100,000 people. Meanwhile, when a positive case in a city school's location occurs, student learning centers and regular school programs in the same buildings are treated as separate spaces, where one group isn't informed of a case in another. Same goes for schools who share a building. Stakeholders deserve to know if a positive case has occurred in the building they work or learn in, even if it wasn't connected to their specific program and space within that building. One of the selling points from the district about why facilities were safe for in-person activities was the work being done on HVAC systems and the installation of MERV 13 filters. Alarmingly, though, these installations have for the most part not taken place. The district recently added information about the condition of our facilities and their air filtration status plan on the city schools website. That list shows 117 schools are merely scheduled for their filters and air purifiers, and only 15 schools have had their work completed. 10 schools currently conducting in-person teaching and learning have not yet had their filters upgraded. And this all supposes that air filters and purifiers are sufficient when we know that many of these buildings lack adequate airflow and air exchanges, which isn't noted anywhere. Finally, this evening, I'd like to talk about student learning objectives, or SLOs. The U.S. Department of Education defines the SLO process as a, quote, participatory method of setting measurable goals or objectives. CTAC and AIR, leading experts on SLOs, both emphasize the need to have SLOs, quote, created, driven, and owned by teachers in order to garner the greatest impact on student learning. City Schools, by contrast, has removed teacher participation, creation, and ownership from the SLO process. Teachers used to be able to choose from a variety of district-approved assessments and their own teacher-created assessments. Now, the vast majority of teachers across contents and ages can no longer create their own assessment, nor do they even have a choice between multiple district-approved assessments. Not only has their assessment already been chosen for them, the targets they must hit have also been predetermined by the district. To add insult to injury, when these teachers submit their predetermined SLO to the district for approval, they are asked to write a rationale for their choices, even though their professional judgment played no role in the process whatsoever. Furthermore, there are serious validity and differentiation flaws with the targets chosen by the district. For example, in one of the mandated tests for elementary literacy, all students on red must score a 58, meaning that a student who recently immigrated to the country and speaks little English and started with a score of 2 is expected to gain 56 sounds by middle of year, while a native English speaker with no special education needs and a beginning of the year score of 50 is expected to gain 8 sounds. This is the type of situation remedied by educators empowered to exercise professional judgment to differentiate by individual. Instead, the district has chosen to enforce the poorly designed targets created by a for-profit testing company, Amplify. All the while, teachers' ability to impact student learning are mediated by their class's ability to access high-speed internet, thereby penalizing those who work with the higher proportions of students impacted by structural racism. While we're asked to give grace and space to a district that does not pay us on time according to their own agreements, inadequately resources essential offices, unable to provide the most basics of services to employees, and sucks what little professional autonomy we have left out of our work, secretaries and PSRPs continue to be denied accommodations and are mandated to unnecessarily endanger their lives in inadequately ventilated facilities in the height of a global pandemic. I beg the board commissioners to ask tough questions of district leadership and seek out information from those on the ground rather than accepting presentations from leadership as full and impartial truths. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Gaber. Next, we have Mr. Larry Simmons, who's representing the Parent Community Advisory Board.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm just here to discuss school choice. So policy 80A, city schools must move to disrupt and dismantle inequities in every area of our work. City schools will work to aggressively and efficiently eliminate inequitable practices, systems, and structures that create advantages for some students and families while disadvantaging others. City schools will allocate resources to replace those inequitable practices, systems, and structures with new ones to ensure that we provide racially equitable education and environments to children and families of color. Given the aforementioned, how is the school choice process reflecting the equity process this year? We know children of lower social economic status, Black and Latinx children, homeless children, all have more difficulty. One, getting access to powerful devices. Two, access to reliable high-speed internet. And three, a caregiver at home, because most Black and Latinx caregivers are much less likely to be able to work from home, meaning kids are on their own for virtual learning. Is there an appeals or review process for children who had excellent grade prior to the pandemic closure? Why is it appropriate to penalize children who performed very well before closure with a lower closure composite score? For kids with special needs who may not be receiving all services or equivalent services during COVID, how is it the composite score fair and equitable? The current situation should be an opportunity to innovate and disrupt inequitable practices in Baltimore City schools, not the other way around. It's been almost 4 years now since the Fund for Educational Excellence published a report, Calculated Choices, in which it found that Baltimore's choice system in its current form has had the unintended consequences of replicating existing inequities rather than correcting them. The report's 5 recommendations were: provide more access to advanced academic offerings to more students, including a specific recommendation that city schools should open magnet honors programs in more high schools in the district. 2, offer middle grade students better preparation and coaching on navigating the choice process. 3, give students better, deeper information about schools, specifically city schools should set up a centrally managed online system where students district-wide can sign up for shadow days at any high school they are interested in. 4, provide on-demand preparation and coaching for parents on navigating the choice process, including the idea that districts should make available on-demand school choice workshops for city school parents. And then 5, just basic improvements to customer service to parents during peak transfer periods. What is the status of city schools' progress in providing an equitable high school education to Baltimore's youth, given that only about half of Baltimore City's high schools achieve a 60% or greater graduation rate? The process is driven by composite scores, and we know that the students in higher income neighborhoods whose parents navigated the choice process in 5th grade to place them in schools with honors classes are set up for higher scores due to the honors weighing on their grades, rather than students in neighborhood schools that do not offer honors or whose parents were not in a position to master the choice process when their children were in 5th grade. Rather than making small adjustments to an antiquated school choice institution that has been shown to reinforce systemic inequity, instead of reversing it, isn't it now our opportunity to truly disrupt this practice and take steps towards a vision of equitable access for all students to the opportunities currently only offered to a few? Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. And our last speaker from one of our recognized groups is from ASCBC, and we have Ms. Alana Hines.
Hello, everyone. Hello, can you guys hear me and see me? Okay, great. Hi. Good evening, Commissioners, Madam Chair, and fellow viewers. My name is Alana Hines, President of the Associated Student Congress with ASCBC, which is the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City. Some things that ASCBC is focused heavily on is the stress that both students and teachers are enduring in ways that we can resolve this issue together. Simply put, both teachers and students need more asynchronous time. Asynchronous time that can be allotted for student mentors, extracurricular support, enrichment periods, even a time block where students can just get their missing assignments done. Giving schools the ability to draft their own schedule for an asynchronous day would allow for schools to create a schedule that fits the needs of their students and to not have a one-size-fits-all learning method. In addition to the asynchronous day, we're also going to have the plan to create a student hub. The student hub will be on the school-led board, and it would include pre-recorded video updates, policy updates, links to student resources such as EBSCO, Khan Academy, CK12, and will link students and parents directly to the contact information of board and ASCBC members, as well as myself. Another huge thing that ASCBC has been focusing on is student advocacy and leadership. Collectively, myself and the board have made the decision to add new positions to ASCBC. For example, the LGBTQ+ liaison, who will be a part of our school diversity council. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you for hearing my remarks.
Whoops, I lost your picture, but thank you, Ms. Hines, for sharing that with us. And from here, it's good to hear from ASCBC, so thank you. Board members, based on public comments, are there any additional items that you would?
Chair Cheney, we got some.
I'm sorry. I know. I'm sorry. I'm just blanking out here. I need to turn it to you for additional public comment. That's what I need to do. Thank you.
All right. So first we have Mr. Stephen Fitzpatrick is submitting an email, which I'll now read. My work within my current role. Hold on, let me change this. My work within my current role as coordinator for recruitment, retention, and experiential learning for the School of Agricultural and Natural Sciences here at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore has allowed me to work with some phenomenal students, organizations, and community leaders. Here at UMES, I'm specifically responsible for identifying internships, scholarships, study abroad, career, professional, and educational opportunities for students interested in the agricultural industry. I cannot stress the importance of such programs, as not only are schools across the country considering disposing of ag programs in urban areas, but there's a huge disparity in the availability of resources to encourage and motivate students within these communities to pursue agriculture. Thanks to my middle and high school agriculture courses, FFA and MANRRS, I was able to get a full ride to college majoring in agriculture, an opportunity to work for the USDA right after I graduated high school, and now 3 degrees later, I am in a position 17 years later where I am able to go out and identify communities and students that can benefit from all the amazing opportunities ag has to offer. Here at UMES, we have seen a dramatic increase in interest in admission to some of our ag programs that have struggled over these last several years. Our agribusiness, general agriculture, and animal science / pre-vet majors have seen significant growth. Our pre-vet program, for example, now serves as one of the strongest programs within the Department of Agriculture. Enrollment for this program through my initiatives led to a 70% increase in students. I serve on the National Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Science Leadership Team as the Public Relations Committee Chair and as the Region 1 and 2 Graduate Student Vice President. This organization aims to promote academic and professional advancement by empowering minorities in ag, natural resources, and related sciences. Since my time here, I've sent countless students, high school and collegiate across the country and world to experience all the agriculture and STEM industries have to offer, and hope that you will greatly consider retaining this program, as I'm a product of how successful you can be. My students represent such successes and organizations that partner with us, such as MDFFA, MATA, MAEF, MANRRS, Purdue, Mountain Air, Merck, Land O'Lakes, FMC, and countless others. I've seen what these programs can do for the students and their future endeavors. Stephen Fitzpatrick. Next, we have a video from Melissa McDonald.
Commission. Commissioners. My name is Cindy Shogwest. I'm a field representative with the Baltimore Teachers Union, and I'm here this evening to speak about certifications. Certification through the Office of Human Capital in Baltimore City is an issue that consistently plagues our members. Every year, the field representatives are tasked with filing appeal after appeal for our members whose certificates were not renewed for erroneous reasons. Consistently and routinely, the Office of Certifications fails to respond to even the most basic and straightforward questions. Our members cannot receive updates on their certificate, cannot have meetings with the Office of Certifications, aren't provided explanations when their certificates are denied without the intervening of a field representative or someone else from the Baltimore Teachers Union. The BTU attempted to resolve some of these issues by hosting a meeting with the Office of Human Capital on August the 2nd of 2019. When asked what they would do to correct some of these consistent issues, the Office of Human Capital informed the BTU that they would be training all employee engagement specialists to be able to answer certification questions. It appears that this has not happened. The frustrating part is that we know that this can't be done. There are counties across the state with helpful, consistent, logical, knowledgeable certifications offices who are able to quickly respond to members, to hold meetings with them, to explain the issues with their certificate. It's just not done here. In arguably the toughest district in this state, certification should be the last thing on an educator's mind.
Hi, my name is Erin Hull, and I signed the petition because it took over 6 months of emails, phone calls, and trips to North Avenue before I got one response from the Office of Certification.
Teachers wrote about unanswered phone calls and emails and lost documentation, as well as in-person visits where they are consistently unable to get clear, correct information that's critical to keeping their jobs.
Hello, my name is Melissa McDonald. The Office of Certification is notorious among teachers for their continued dereliction of duty, and this failure not only affects individual teachers, but it affects the teacher retention rate in the entire district. 342 teachers have signed our certification petition with one simple demand. We ask that every BTU member receives a response from the Office of Certification within 10 days, and tonight we ask the board to ensure that this demand is met. We will close with some comments from my District 7 City Councilman-elect.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is James Torrance. I'm a proud member of the Baltimore Teachers Union, and I'm proud to stand with my fellow union members in requesting your support in ensuring a better timeline for teacher certifications. We know that our teachers are the front line for the district, and we know that it is important that we keep them in our classrooms. So tonight, I ask kindly that you help us to make sure that we keep our frontline staff there.
Give me one moment. Let me queue up the next person. Okay, next we have a video from Ms. Brittany Harrison.
I am a parent to a first grader at Commodore John Rogers. I am also a member of Teachers Democracy Project, a social worker and a community advocate. I would like to request that the District of Baltimore City consider supporting families and forming pods and having available space to create pods. I myself, I'm a single parent. I'm a social worker. And I'm an essential employee, so I'm required to work. And it's difficult. In the last semester, I did everything by myself with some support from my family, and it was extremely difficult. Worrying about taking him to my mom's house, who was his grandma, and putting her at risk when I had to go out and do things, and coming back to pick him up and bring him back the same day. It's putting her and our family at risk. I was lucky enough to be able to talk with another family member, parent at the school, and realized that she was having some of the same situations and difficulties, and we discussed and decided to form a pod, and we can identify and connected with another parent, and we created this pod where each of us take a day, and the children go to each home one day out of the week. So we're each able to have 2 days off to be able to focus on work or whatever may be required. And at the same time, the children have been enjoying interacting with each other. Some of the highlights that we've been able to say is, my son, him doing extra work because he wanted to be on the same level of already as his peer. Those things that he regularly got in school, he's able to continue those social interactions with a small group. It's just 3 children and 3 parents. In addition to that, something that made it easy that speaks to something that city already offered is the fact that we all volunteer at the school. We all had background checks through the school. So that made us more comfortable to allow our children to be each other's homes. And we all volunteered at the school, so we all had a relationship with the children. If the district was willing to support or encourage pod groups, I believe other families would be able to come together on their own or with some support from the school to connect and create pods and provide a learning environment for their children and be able to meet their children's needs socially and educationally. Education-wise. So again, I ask that the district consider supporting families and forming pods. Statistically, they've been shown to be successful, and the district does have resources to support in space where it's not necessarily always has to be in the home. Thank you.
Okay, next we have an email from Ms. Sarah Sandoval Mohapatra. Just give me 1 minute, I will pull up. Okay. My name is Sarah Sandoval Mohapatra. I'm the parent of 2 students in Baltimore City Public Schools, and I serve as the board of directors for Patterson Park Public Charter School, Inc. Our board of directors and staff are incredibly grateful to the Board of School Commissioners for your commitment to our shared vision of expanding access to a whole child education by opening Clay Hill Public Charter School in Southeast Baltimore. I am pleased to inform you that our board of directors and staff have been working with urgency to overcome the challenges presented by the global pandemic and open the doors to Clay Hill Public Charter School in 2021 and 2022. I'm writing to request your support for the enrollment plan and professional development waiver we have submitted, which we believe will help us best serve our founding students and families. Patterson Park Public Charter School, Inc. and Clay Hill Public Charter School's vision is lifelong learners, healthy families, and strong neighborhoods, and we believe in providing a whole child education that's grounded in academic excellence, identity, wellness, and love. Our decision to delay the opening of Clay Hill Public Charter School until the 2021-2022 school year in light of the global pandemic was difficult for many reasons, but most importantly because we always wanted to be in a position to deliver on our promises to kids and families. As a result of the delay, families who apply for a seat in 2nd grade will now be aged out of Clay Hill. Additionally, Clay Hill Public Charter School will now be opening in FY22, and there are anticipated financial constraints predicted by the Baltimore City Public Schools as a result of the governor's veto of the blueprint for Maryland schools. Fortunately, our staff and board have continued planning in earnest for 2021-2022 opening, and we believe we're in a stronger position to adapt to constantly changing conditions of COVID-19. We have engaged in financial feasibility planning and maintained contact with Clay Hill founding families, resulting in a successful enrollment launch and a clear path forward in facility planning. Because we are committed to delivering on our promises to families and want to ensure a sustainable future for Clay Hill, we have requested an enrollment plan change that adjusts the starting grade levels for CHPCS's opening year and incorporates a sustainable max enrollment. Additionally, we have requested a calendar waiver that mirrors the schedule we have successfully implemented at Patterson Park Public Charter School. We believe that high quality, effective professional development is an important component in developing a talented staff and helping our students achieve academic success. This schedule will enable our new staff to develop the knowledge, skill, and mindsets necessary to execute a whole child anti-racist curriculum and allow both schools to collaborate, engage, and share professional development. Clay Hill Public Charter School is a labor of love centrally focused on the best interest of the students and families we serve, and we look forward to the continued partnership of Baltimore City Public Schools and the Office of New Initiatives in a successful launch in the 2022 school year. Next, we have a video from Ms. Rebecca Yenaway.
Summary of what a group of parents at Teachers Democracy Project provided as feedback and suggestions for improving virtual school. The first issue is that parents would like to see more project-based learning. This would make it possible for students to spend less time on their devices, manage their own time, collect real data, and connect to meaningful issues in their lives and community. Projects can be structured to include tested skills and content and do not need to involve lots of materials. Given the persistent barriers for some in accessing the internet or adequate devices, this would be both a dynamic response to difficult learning circumstances and one that ensures greater accessibility. Parents would also like help in helping their kids. For better or worse, we are a part of the teaching team and would be more effective if we had easy access to some key pieces of information. We would benefit from quarterly goals being articulated, so we know what concepts and content kids should be learning. Also, many parents wonder why kids are doing math or literacy in the way that they are. The approaches used today are different from how many of us were taught. Understanding the rationale would help us help our children when questions come up at home. Parents would like to see differentiated instruction. Though we hear some children receive classroom instruction that meets their needs, other children do not experience that same level of instruction. They report no coach class or small group instruction at all in their first quarter. We would urge the district level and school administrators to recognize classroom teachers who are exemplifying differentiated learning. Allow school principals and department heads to observe those model teachers so that they provide feedback to their schools. Take meaningful opportunities to research best practices and provide professional development, and hold principals accountable for learning walks that target differentiation. We also ask again that the district move to 1 day of fully asynchronous learning to allow teachers time for one-on-one supports for students who need it. In September, when we brought up a similar list of issues about virtual learning, we were told that revisions would be considered in the second quarter. Now that we are in the second quarter, we would like feedback on these issues. Thanks so much.
Okay, next we have Ms. Melissa Schober commenting live. Ms. Schober.
Hello, good evening. As in other years, the 2021 legislative agenda supports the continuation of the Board of School Commissioners as the entity solely responsible for the delivery of educational services and the educational direction of city schools. Within that delivery are goals that speak to excellence and opportunity for student success, high standards, resources, and opportunities for all students. As the board votes to support the legislative platform, I would ask that you consider how you are fulfilling those goals and values, not just in Annapolis, but here in the city as well. Policy 80A, the equity policy approved just 18 months ago, requires city schools to, quote, disrupt and dismantle inequities in every area of our work. At the same time this policy is on the books and this board supports a legislative platform centered on excellence for all students, the school choice process continues apace. Students very recently received composite scores, either permitting or foreclosing opportunities to apply to certain high schools. This year's composite scores are wholly based on grades. Grades, by board policy, are primarily based on assessment, 70% in fact. Especially during the pandemic, students' ability to perform well is curtailed by factors beyond their control. Students without access to powerful enough devices, to fast internet, a problem Dr. Chinia acknowledged tonight, who are juggling work and/or sibling care and are struggling with competing demands, are less likely to perform well in an academic setting. Unfortunately, we don't know exactly how many students are affected because this district and this board has not released any public-facing data on failure rates by demographic group. That said, assuming our students are performing like peers in other counties, we can safely assume that the failure rate is rising among historically disadvantaged students, particularly students living in poverty. Policy BBA states that this board has full authority and jurisdiction over all educational matters affecting the city. That includes grading and school choice. The same policy requires the board to adopt an equity lens in decision-making to eliminate inequitable practices, systems, and structures that create advantages for some and disadvantages for others. School choice, particularly during a pandemic, is a system and structure that is actively advantaging some students, particularly students of means, while actively disadvantaging others. This is not a new problem. Data on middle school accrual to advanced academics I obtained via MPIA shows the program is much wider and includes many fewer children with disabilities than the district as a whole. By not speaking and publicly demanding data, this board is at minimum tacitly approving of the years-long advantaging of some students beginning in middle school and the relative disadvantaging of others via explicit tracking. I ask how this board intends to honor its foundation and basic commitments and to hold administration to account for the equitable or inequitable education of all students via its adopted policies, particularly during this acute crisis period for our children and families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schober. Next, we have Ms. Suzanne Zilberfarb.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Suzanne Zilberfarb, and I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Agricultural Education Foundation. I'm here to speak out on behalf of the agricultural programs at Reginald Lewis High School and its teacher, Mr. Matt Beagle. I've been at MAIF for just over a year, and I've seen the amazing opportunities our ag students have and the personal care and guidance that comes from their ag teachers. My own agricultural career started after earning a communications degree and working with it at an agricultural newspaper, then starting my own business doing public relations and management for agricultural nonprofits before I took this job at MAIF. I doubt that any of my jobs were classified as ag jobs, but they were ag jobs, and they are. The ag industry has some 400 different careers, and we are hiring as an industry with bright outlooks and salaries in veterinary, biotech, finance, environmental management, business, education, and more. The greater Baltimore ag community needs your graduates. Your students deserve the opportunity to pursue careers or higher learning pathways that are already in place to guarantee their success. Please keep the ag programs at Reginald Lewis High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zilberfarb. Next, I have an email I will read from Ms. Martha Pindale. Dear Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners, I'm the Executive Secretary of a unique college scholarship program in the greater Baltimore area called the American Landscape Institute. I'm writing on behalf of ALI to voice ALI's concern that the agriculture program at Reginald Lewis High School may be closed. Landscape companies in the greater Baltimore area will eagerly hire these graduates and give them good wages and a clean career path. Many of these companies are owned by baby boomers getting ready to retire, but will need someone to take over their businesses and carry them into the future. ALI was created to attract and train the next generation of horticulture professionals by providing paid employment and an 80% scholarship to attend horticulture classes at the Community College of Baltimore County. They graduate debt-free, earn 39 college credits, and a certificate in landscape installation, maintenance, and design. Graduates will have the knowledge and training to become supervisors and managers in the horticulture industry. The horticulture industry in Maryland is the #2 commodity in agriculture. Our industry is booming as provided by the 2018 Maryland Horticulture Survey, commissioned by the Maryland Nursery, Landscape, and Greenhouse Association and published in 2019. Highlights from the 2018 survey. Gross sales were an estimated $1.376 billion in 2018 and projected to increase to $1.465 billion in 2019. The industry employed nearly 25,000 individuals in Maryland. Inexperienced employees received an average wage of $12.38 per hour, $485 a week, and $25,750 per year. Experienced employees received an average wage of $14.94 an hour, $598 per week, $31,096 per year. Managers received an average wage of $20.88 per hour, $835 per week, $43,420 per year. And supervisors received an average wage of $25.49 per hour, $1,020 per week, $53,000 per year. Factors limiting growth within the industry include labor. Finding reliable, skilled employees have caused difficulties. Maryland horticulture is thriving, and yet young people are rarely exposed to agriculture or horticulture in schools. They have no idea how vast the industry is in Maryland, what a profitable profession it can be. The students at Reginald Lewis are the fortunate exceptions to this. ALI hopes that the valuable and worthwhile ag program at the school will continue for many years to come. Best regards, Martha Pindale. And the final comment of the night is a video from Lisa Guerrero, Taylor Thomas, Alyssa Evans, and Ashley Fennell at Gwynn Park High School.
Hi, my name is Lisa Gadara, and I am one of two advisors at Gwynn Park High School. Today, we would like to have three of our past officers speak to you about our program.
Good evening, Board of Education members. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Environmental, Agricultural, and Natural Resources Program. We would like to share our high school experiences being in Prince George's County. My name is Elisa Evans. I am a sophomore agriculture pre-vet major at Alcorn State University in Lorman, Mississippi. I chose to be in this program because of my growing interest of the environment and agriculture.
Hello, my name is Ashley Fennell. I am a current freshman at the University of Maryland College Park, majoring in agribusiness. I chose the EA in our program at Gwynn Park High School because I wanted to step out of my comfort zone and I wanted to experience new things.
Hello, my name is Taylor Thomas, and I'm a freshman at Kent State University in Kent, Ohio, where I'm currently majoring in environmental studies with a minor in political science. I chose to join the AFNR program at Gwynn Park High School because I've always had an interest in the environment and I wanted to learn more about it. Students under the Environmental Agriculture Natural Resources program are heavily involved in two organizations called Manners and FFA. FFA is the largest youth organization in the country. This organization focuses on promoting the importance of agriculture to high school students. Manners stands for Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. This organization is an opportunity for minority students to come together that share an interest in agriculture and other related sciences. Through these two organizations, we've also had the opportunity to testify at the state legislator on behalf of the Maryland agricultural students. We've also been able to testify for urban agriculture at Prince George's County Council, and we've advocated for agriculture, and we've done that on the National Ag Day with National FFA and Manners on Capitol Hill.
In the past 6 years, 52 of our students, while still in high school, have had several internships with our various partners, including the National Park Service with Axtee Foundation, the USDA, Prince George's County Soil Conservation District, the World Food Prize, including the Bullard Bourne International Internship, as well as the Wallace Carver Internship, NOAA, Cargill, and as well as participating in the 1890s USDA Scholars Program that allows for full tuition of their undergraduate degree as well as job placement post-graduation.
27 of our students have also been able to participate in the USDA Ag Discovery Program, and they've been able to travel to the various colleges across the country, such as North Carolina State, as well as the Virgin Islands. Our students have also been able to participate in the local, state, and national public speaking competitions. And at these conferences, our students will learn different leadership skills as well as writing skills.
Over these past couple years, on average, our students went 20 field trips a year. The goal of this is to take students out of the classroom to experience agriculture and environmental science hands-on and learn about the many different fields in agriculture. This program has allowed us to grow as people by teaching us lifelong soft skills, such as our interview techniques with internships and for jobs.
These organizations have also given us a new perspective on agriculture and taught us how important ag is in our daily lives. And we're able to push past the norms and stereotypes of what agriculture is and advocate that to other students.
Success can be measured when I see people that look like me, which inspires me to lead. Through the youth organizations such as Manners and FFA, I've been allowed to see others in a successful field that is not as friendly.
Our students have had a rich school experience, and we hope that yours will have that opportunity too. So please consider keeping your programs for agriculture in the Baltimore City Public Schools. Thank you again for letting us share.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Chinya, back to you.
Thank you. And thank you to the persons and groups who brought public comment to us this evening. Board members, are there any additional items that you would like to pull from the consent agenda based on public comment?
Madam Chair, can I make a comment about one of the topics? May
okay, you mean from public comment?
Yes, I guess.
Or
yeah, from public comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was intrigued I was intrigued by the whole idea of school choice. Is there some way I could learn more or get more information from staff and the public in terms of the whole idea of tracking educational equity, exposure, opportunity, and in potential? Because that's always been a concern of mine. It's like we have a lot of high potential kids that don't make the cut. And I looked at certain schools in certain situations, and it's like why we lack diversity in terms of the smart kids. I just like to see more in terms of how we can elevate and be more equitable in terms of the talented.
So one of the things I would just say on that, Commissioner Reed, is one, we can certainly queue up the kind of presentation that we do almost every year on where we are with choice, which will give you some of not only the data, but in those presentations, we also work to present the progress that we've made in some of the areas that were cited in the fund report, and some of the shifts that we've made and some of the shifts we're seeing in the data. Fundamentally, we know the challenges that are there, which is why we've been doing some of the work that we have been over the last 4 years in terms of equal opportunity. And even this year, the virtual environment has afforded us the opportunity to reach more families than we ever have before in terms of actual guiding people through the progress. And I think then that might be an opportune time for the board to also take up some of the deeper questions about choice, which have been endemic to the choice process that has been in place, frankly, at this point for generations. I mean, you can go all the way back to the founding of Poly. And the city made a decision decades ago. So this is not a new something. But I think the question would be, how do we update that, cue the board on where we are with data and progress along that, and then, again, have the board have a discussion on it. So I was just pointing that out, Chair Chinya, more as an information point, and then, in the, I guess, free discussion time we have at the end, or in another upcoming board meeting, we can certainly address it then.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Santelises. And as you said, I was going to mention the fact that we generally get a pretty detailed report about the choice process every year, but that would be a good thing for us to take a look at. So I want to go back.
I'm sorry to
the
interject.
Consent agenda.
We have the presentation.
I don't know who's speaking. Can you just say who it is? I'm sorry.
Sorry, this is Joe Strake with the CEO's office.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
We have the presentation scheduled for July 6th to give a recap, and that is a data extensive presentation. So it is on the agenda. Traditionally, we do it after the school year is over so that we can do a cumulative look at the middle and high school choice results. And Commissioner Reed, I will be more than happy to share with Christian, to share with the rest of the board, the presentation from last year.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna wait 1 second to make sure before I go back. Okay. So I want to go back now to the consent agenda, and we'll look at the items that have been pulled first. We have 8.01, which was the supplemental appropriations, and building preparation, cleaning, safety enhancements, and there was a question about just information about the needs and the funding. So I'm gonna open that up for staff. If you could give us some response to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Chair Chinia. This is Chris Doherty from Finance. I'm happy to jump in, and I know others of my colleagues are available as well. Commissioner Reed, you had asked about that, and the kind of overview or a little bit of more context to that is actually brings us back to the last board meeting where we had a different but similar request that you'll remember, which was for the first time we were asking that an amount that had been set aside in assigned fund balance for PPE be taken out via this supplemental appropriation mechanism and basically put into our account so that we can start using it. And that amount, to remind folks, was 3.7629 million. If people happen to remember that, it was, so 3.7 and a little bit of change out of an $8 million assigned fund balance category. At the time, we said there will be more coming, even though we didn't know exactly what it would be or how much it would be. And in fact, the second chapter, if you will, is the one that you're referring to, in which we put our heads together with ops and with everyone else, and we requested $7.4 million in the supplemental appropriation from the assigned fund balance that was called building enhancements, deep cleaning, and it was specifically aimed at getting our buildings in the kind of shape that they need to be to have in-person programming. And so with the previous 3.7 and change, and with this request for 7.4, that obviously brings us up to a little over 11. That represents about 43% of the overall COVID-focused assigned fund balance that we put together. And what we were doing last time and this time is essentially we're trying not to ask for the money before we need it, and at the same time not to try to cut it too close. So we do err a little bit on the side of caution by asking for like 7.4 million is a big chunk of money, and we are estimating that for the building enhancements that we're talking about, that will take us. Our expectation is that will take us through the third quarter, but we know it's a moving target of how many kids, how many buildings, and of course the macro environment. So it is just our educated best guesses. And also to put some more meat on the bones, as we've talked about in the past, but the actual stuff, some of the actual stuff that this money will go towards is the MERV 13 filters that we've talked a lot about. the standalone air purifiers. And as I think the board all knows, the reason that depending on how the current school is already configured in an HVAC manner, either we can literally slot in the MERV 13 filters like the way you would kind of replace your own home air conditioner filter, broadly. Either we do that, or if the system isn't set up to be able to do that, that's when we buy and have purchased large amounts of these standalone air purifiers. So depending on the school's current situation, they get one or the other. Also, you might have seen or heard about or read about some of these deep cleaning fogging machines. Like you'll see them across different industries. It's a deeper level of cleaning for places, and so those machines are also on this purchase list. When staff do those deep cleanings, they actually have a requirement for a higher level of kind of Tyvek PPE. So that kind of Tyvek PPE is also part of this, as well as some pretty mundane but important stuff like all the signage that you see when you go into a place, and they've done some thinking about social distancing and how they want the flow in a building to go. A lot of that stuff, it's kind of, you notice if it's not there now. Like you go into a place and you'll see arrows on the floor that are saying this is the flow of traffic here and this is the flow of traffic there. That's also some of what's in this particular batch. So it's kind of runs a gamut. But the convening idea is all the stuff that our folks in operations and the principals and the schools folks are needing to make sure that we can and are receiving people safely based on the best science and knowledge that we have now. So I hope that's not too much detail, but I know Dr. Washington is available for much more detail than that if the board wants it. But that's what rolled up into this almost $7.5 million.
Dr. Washington, yeah, go ahead.
And so if I can I think Chris provided significant amount of, Chief Doherty provided significant amount of detail. So I really appreciate that. And I will say that one flag is that also a lot of the resources are targeted towards the air filtration component of it. So as Chief Doherty pointed out around the purifiers and the filters, every single school within the district has a filtration resolution, meaning that it is either scheduled or has been in the process or completed with a MERV 13 filter or with the air purifier. And any space that is used as in-person right now has a purifier in place. So as we were moving through the process of going in and doing the upgrades of MERV 13 filters within our particular schools, we ensured that every single space had an air purifier as we were doing the upgrades. And so in most of the schools that you see on the front end, and that's just a snapshot in time, right? So we also have a quality assurance process by which a school is not going to be listed complete until the team has gone in and actually assessed the entire space to make sure that all the filter upgrades are completed. So most of the list, I'm just referring to the comment that was made during the previous public comment period. The list that you have now is just a snapshot of those schools that have been assessed and it is confirmed as complete. The ones that are in process are the next set of schools that are MERV 13s. But if it's an in-person learning space and it's not listed as complete for MERV 13, it means that that space is being supported by a purifier. So I just wanted to make sure I provided that clarification to the information that's available online.
I believe Commissioner Sykes, do you have a question?
Good evening. Yes, I do. So for the in-person sites where we don't have the MERV 13 filters for the air purifiers, how many air purifiers are we putting in the classroom that has students in them?
So it's based off the square footage of the classroom space. So most of them tend to have 2 to 3. The larger purifiers may only need just 2 within a classroom space. So every single classroom space that if the building, has not had a completion of the MERV upgrade, and also just to be clear, not all of our schools are going to get the MERV upgrades because not all of our schools' infrastructure can accept it. So they will have purifiers as their final filtration resolution. But if it doesn't have the MERV 13 upgrade yet, there's an air purifier, 2 or 3 supporting that classroom space.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Reed, did that answer for you?
Yeah, great. Oh, I'm going still.
Okay. Okay, then is there a motion to approve item 8.01?
So moved, Robert.
Roberts, thank you. And a second?
Second, Bondima.
Brooks? Thank you. So I'm going to to all those who are in favor, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
McFadden?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
And I'm in favor. So this, we have no one opposed or abstaining. So this is 7 in favor and 2 absent. So this item has passed. Thank you. Commissioners, if you don't mind, I'm going to go through the ones that you've pulled. I know that I'm going to go back then to 8.05 because there was a indication of a presentation along with the student commissioner voting. So I'll do that one last. I haven't forgotten that one when you hear where I go next. Okay, 8.07, the renaming request, and there was just a request for just some more information about what happened and the process here.
Good evening, Board of School Commissioners. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to kind of briefly share where we are with the process. I am Angela Alvarez. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of New Initiatives. I have 2 other people that I just want to just acknowledge to join. And so Lindsay, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening. I'm Lindsay Anderson. I work with Angela in the Office of New Initiatives.
And we also have Principal McLean. Principal McLean, can you say hello?
Hi, everyone. My name is Monica McLean, and I'm principal at Edgecombe Circle Elementary.
So just to quickly remind everyone, in school year 18-19, the board approved the merger of Dr. Martin Luther King and Edgecombe Circle. We've been working with the school community over the last couple of years around preparing for that transition. And so that includes some investments within the facility that we shared last time. I know this is intended to be an abbreviated presentation, so I'm not going to go through all of those pieces. Recently, the school community went through the entire name change request process. We shared for information in the last meeting, the process that was kind of utilized. There was some surveying to get potential names. It's like a long process, but the school, conducted a whole vote process and actually have Principal McLean kind of talk through the actual process used by the school.
Good evening again, everyone. So just to talk about our process. So once we resumed virtually in fall 2020, we just picked up with the exact same process. We didn't reintroduce names to the school community. We decided that it was best to have the naming decision go into the hands of our scholars. And we had made a lot of traction with this from our spring work. We had a solid list of names for consideration. We also wanted to maximize this voting process as an opportunity to incorporate student voice into our work early on and also build student engagement. And so given that our merger happened virtually, we really wanted to seize this opportunity. So as a result, it was fitting for us to align our voting timeline with the national elections that were happening. As a school team, we normed some PowerPoints for the students so that they can use the same language around voting. Teachers had liberty to make modifications and they were encouraged to do so. However, we had a norm template so that it was articulated in a kid-friendly way on why voting was important and what exactly we were voting on. So beginning on October 14th, we modified our school schedule to use Wednesday as a time to really incorporate that student voice into our school program. And we used it as a time to not only select our school name, but also to create our school identity as a whole. So students were also able to select our school colors and our school mascot throughout this process. So October 14th was the day that we really began to pique the interest for the students and introduce the process. On October 21st, students were able to give ideas for consideration. And so they were able to add any additional names, but then pick our school colors and our mascot. And from their suggestions, we were able to narrow that down for the top 5. On October 28th, students participated in what we called our primary elections, and we used these results to narrow down the top 3 student names, the top 4 colors, because there was a tie, and then also our top 3 mascots. Teachers use this as an opportunity to do some norming around the election process and just some additional teaching and apply this to what was happening in the world around us. And then after the top names were selected, we blasted the information out to our families, our teachers, our community partners, everyone. We shared the information for our raisins. And so that's what we call our partners and our families and our teachers. We blasted the information out to our raisins. We also included it in a Friday letter. We included it in our Google Classrooms and our class dojos. Even though we were clear that the vote would primarily fall on the students, we wanted to make sure that we had agreement and buy-in from the community at large. And so on November 4th, we had our formal election and the election results were announced to the school community on November 11th. One thing that was on the ballot for raisins only, and again, we call our community partners, teachers, and families raisins because it takes a village. So one thing that was on the ballots for raisins only were feedback around our desire to name parts of our building. One thing that came up and just bubbled up oftentimes in our transition meetings was the feelings that the community had around the closure of many schools with African American names. And so because of this, we wanted to honor the impact that it had on our community, but also make sure we took note of it throughout this design process. And so while we couldn't make any promises around what the school name would be, we wanted to honor the concerns from the community and name parts of our building instead. And so as a part of that election ballot for the adults, they had to agree whether or not they had to identify whether or not they agreed with these recommendations. And so the community overwhelmingly supported these recommendations, which were to rename our library as the Langston Hughes Library, to rename our gym auditorium as the Malcolm X Gymatorium. The cafeteria would be renamed the MLK Cafe. And so we have this beautiful outdoor courtyard in our building, and we received some money to transform that into a learning space. So we already have a garden there, but we want to make sure that that Zen garden, it also has a Zen garden and outdoor classroom, the existing garden that's there, and that'll be called the Eagles Garden. Another thing that is not mentioned on this slide that was also important to us is to name the main hallway in our building to honor George Mitchell. So we would name that main hallway George Mitchell Way. As you know, he was a driving force in our community, and he was a champion for Park Heights, and he really cared deeply about our school. So we want to install a hallway in our building that honors his legacy and just his feelings about our community, and also have some sort of mirror that shows students that the next hometown hero in Park Heights would be them. And so from this process, we really got students engaged about having their voice heard. So we have additional projects and activities that we'll get some student voice in, but this has been just a great opportunity for our students as a whole. And so the next slide shows how we were able to do the breakdown. So these are the names for consideration that were for our final election. We had several ways that we presented it. So our Eagles were able to vote online for grades 2 through 5. For our students in pre-K through first, we knew that they would have trouble navigating the electronic system. So they were able to vote during those Wednesday sessions with their homeroom teachers. And then again, we blasted that information out to all of our raisins, and we were able to come up with our school name, our school mascot, and our new school colors. And so our new school name is, or that what we are requesting is to be called Park Heights Academy, which is also fitting, especially considering all of the renaming and the changes that we want to make to our space.
We ask the board to approve the community's requests as requested. Commissioner Chenier, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Are there any other questions? Congratulations on that process.
Thank you.
If not, is there a motion to approve item 8.07?
So moved.
Commissioner James.
Okay. I heard Commissioner James. Who was the other voice I heard? Is that Commissioner McFadden?
You heard several, but I will second to it.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner McFadden is the second. So I'm going to ask this one a different way. Is anyone opposed? Is there any objection? If not, then this motion will carry, and congratulations on Park Heights Academy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So did everybody. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on. The next item is 16.03. This is just pulled for a vote. And so is there a motion to accept, to approve item 16.03?
So moved. Oh, no, I can't vote. No.
Someone else needs to make the motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. Is there a second?
Reed. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Bondima, I know you're abstaining.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Brooks, are you in favor?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McFadden?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Roberts? Okay. Chenya, I am. Commissioner, anyone else abstaining?
Could you see me, Madam Chair? I couldn't unmute. I'm yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let's see, let's see if I got that now. So we have 6 in favor, 1 abstention, 2 absent. Did I get that?
Yep.
And this one passes. Thank you. Item 20.01, the Fund for Educational Excellence, the Chicago Parent Program. There was a request for some additional information about the program.
Good evening, commissioners. This sits within our department around family and parent engagement. I'm happy to give a little more context as to the Chicago Parent Program. We are excited to offer this opportunity for our families and our schools. I will just offer that this has been in our schools for several years now. There's 11 schools that are with the program. It started out as a partnership between city schools, the Hopkins School of Nursing, and the Fund for Educational Excellence that was brought from Chicago, which was a parent grown and created program there. And we have since had 11 schools who've been deeply immersed in using this program. We'll also offer that this is something that through our Title I individual school dollars that goes to schools, schools have chosen this as the program that they would like to use. Our office has Title I dollars that goes directly to our schools, and they apply for what they would like to use those dollars for. So it's school-based resources. The reason why we're having to bring it to the board this evening is because so many schools are using it that the cost of it is exceeding the irregular $50,000 that is under the board approval. And so I just want to offer that this program supports the district's strategy to strengthen family and community engagements across Title I schools, serving low-income families through capacity building, evidence-based family engagement strategies. It provides families needed support and resources to help them manage the day-to-day challenges that come with parenting if they need it. It also aligns the requirement of Title I schools to build the capacity of families to support learning beyond the school day. Parents are recruited at the school level as group leaders. Individuals that are from their school communities work closely with each family to provide coaching, support, and engagement during the program. The model of the program supports families through developing authentic relationships with the children's teachers, strengthening child and parent relationships, addressing the social and emotional learning of students, managing stress and practicing self-care for families and children, and building community and connections with other parents and accessing the resources. One thing to note that this program, is one of the few parent engagement programs that we have that has received a Title I Level 1 ESSA rating, which is fantastic because it's research proven and tested as it being a fantastic way to help our families and schools connect better together through partnership. Many of our parents share that they feel confident in their skills and abilities to support their children's learning at home, which is a core component of our district's work. This resource is even more important during this challenging time. The program is being delivered usually in person, right? But now it's being delivered virtually and by phone. Parents are also mailed videos and resources and materials to access in their own home language. And in this virtual period, it is even more important that families have this resource so they can participate fully in their children's education, build trusting relationships with and connect with individuals from staff and school community to meet the needs of parenting during this uncertain time for everyone. And so with that, we request that the board approve the fund's partnership with the district to offer this fantastic program for our 11 schools that has signaled that they would like to have the program. Happy to ask more questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brooks flagged it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chief Hightower. I have a couple of follow-up questions. I was trying to figure out for the data points that you use, you cited some data around the outcomes. Are they for our families in Baltimore in terms of improved access, improved behavioral outcomes, or is that just like the CHIP program, like broadly?
We offered both data outcomes. If that wasn't clear, we can clarify that and give that to you.
Okay. Maybe I was just misreading it, but so that's great. So I would just love to be able to know like how effective it is for the schools and the families that we're working for. And then also, is there a way to, so if it's shown to be effective, is there any reason why it's not at other schools versus just these ones?
Yeah, so when we provide options and support for our schools who apply for their Title I resources to be used, schools have a choice of what they would like to use it for, right? So these 11 schools have signaled that they really would like to have this program. So we don't require that schools align to any specific thing. They're given a menu of options and they can actually bring their own as long as those options have ESSA evidence to them for the use of the Title I funding. So that's really why. It is because the schools have chosen to do this. And we, again, have shared the information with all of our schools, and these are the ones that have been so committed to moving forward with the program.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay. Are there any other questions? If not, is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I do have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Sykes. I thought your hand was still up from before. I didn't know it was a new time. Go ahead.
So, for item 20.01, my question basically is around with the 11 schools that are utilizing this program and taking the advantage of the program. What grade band are we using the program for, and how is it setting them up for success moving forward with the educational studies? And I think my next question following that would be, we know that early childhood education students need the foundational skills to move forward within their education. So is this program giving them a boost to what they already know to help them succeed, or is it just another leeway to getting more learning that they might not be getting from, or may not understand from when it's taught in class?
Yep. So first, thank you for the question. First off, it is focused on elementary school. We want to make sure that our elementary it's grounded in elementary, right? So the idea of, as you said so eloquently, offering parents the ability to connect with their and families, not just parents, with their children's learning at an early age sets the foundation absolutely for how they engage moving forward and creating those skills and support. And our whole office's goal is to make sure that we connect parents and families to the academic success of their children. So in these 11 schools who've selected this program, that is the way that they are doing that, is by making sure there's deliberate connection between what's going on in the school community with teachers and staff and curriculum and with the families, so they are really have a partnership in their children's education.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Is that it? Okay, I will try again. Is there a motion to approve this item? Thank you. Commissioner Roberts, is there a second? Thank you. Okay, those in favor, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes, thank you.
Brooks?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yeah.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Okay, I'm in favor. So we have no abstentions, no one opposed. So we have 7 in favor and 2 absent. And so this item is approved. Thank you very much. And then we have item 20.02, which was Panorama Education Incorporated. The question was around the opportunities for sharing data and the whole issue of research, the research platform with other partners you may have.
Good evening again, everybody. That's why I kept my camera on. I knew I was next again. So Panorama is a fantastic organization that has helped us in the spring during the pandemic to really get feedback from families in a very robust way. The way that they share the data back from surveys is quick, it is clear, and they've also, this particular item is about having us provide stronger PD and support to our school communities and using that data to make sure that they are addressing the concerns of families, the needs of our students, and so that is the new strategy. We have always developed our own parent survey as a district. If you back up to 2 steps, the state provides annual climate surveys for both our students and our staff, but they don't do it for parents. So we've had a team, even pre-pandemic, working with Panorama to decide a, it's really hard to talk over the noise, sorry.
Somebody needs to turn off their, mute their system.
I'll keep going. But the pre-pandemic, we were working with Panorama to revise our parent survey, our annual survey that we do every year, and then realized very quickly we had a great resource to think about how we use it during the pandemic to get feedback from families. So this fall, I've already launched a beginning of the year survey of families. That information is now posted to our website. I know Commissioner James Hassan mentioned the idea of university partnerships and having an ability to access data from these surveys, and I would just offer that the survey data that we are getting both for the fall is really, and the spring surveys was posted on our website and will continue to be so. So anybody in the public, university or otherwise, can access that information. But this particular procurement item is so that we can better provide professional development and support to our school communities in using that data to make determinations about their programming for students and families. We will also offer, of course, a summary data for the fall, for the spring survey for parents, the overall year survey, that will be provided in the spring as well. But anybody can access those. It doesn't have a particular bend towards providing data or information to universities or other partners, but they have the same access to the data as anyone else would have.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief High Hubbard. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Chief High Hubbard, does this particular procurement allow for any type of integration of translation services as well in terms of professional development for our school-based leaders?
Absolutely. So thank you for flagging that. That was one of the talking points I did not say. So with Panorama, it actually comes out in 11 different languages. We make sure that families can actually access the survey in their home language. And then we also help schools, as part of that PD work that we just talked about, use the information from the different languages and different families to then target in and hone in on what are families saying based on background, based on who they are, based on language spoken. And that disaggregation of data that Panorama gives us, the dashboard really gives us a better view into disaggregating our information about our families.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank
And
you.
I have a question for Chief High Covered as well.
Go ahead, Commissioner Brooks.
Chief High Covered now. So I think this is really an incredible opportunity, and I'm wondering if you all had thought about the ways in which we recognize our LGBTQ families in sort of this data collection process. And so whether there are family units that are identifying as LGBT, or with or parents with children who might be identifying as LGBT. So I'm wondering sort of what thought you might have given to that, and then sort of is that possible with this particular instrument?
So we have not asked that as of yet. You know, we do ask homeschool, we do ask language, we do ask identify a school that your child attends, but we have not asked that particular question around serving our LGBTQ students in the demographics of the survey. I will take that back to our team and see what can be done and how we could do that effectively. Happy to do it.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved, Madam Chair.
McFadden, is there a second?
Second, Bondima.
Thank you. Okay, and those in favor, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm in favor. So there's no one opposed or abstaining. It's 7 in favor and 2 absent. So this item is also approved. Thank you very much. Now we're going to go back to item 8.05, and that one is the legislative platform. We pulled this for both a presentation as well as allowing our student commissioner to vote. So, Mr. Rett.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, and Madam CEO, Dwana Starrett, Director of Legislative and Government Affairs. I'm going to try and share my screen. Just give me 1 second. It's spinning. There we go. Can you see that?
No, not yet.
No? Okay. Let me try it again.
Yes, we can see that, Dwana.
Okay.
Dewana, is it still loading on your side? No, that's mine. Dewana, did we lose you? I think she's frozen.
I think she might be frozen. Uh-oh. Hold on, I'll shoot her a text.
Okay.
I'm back. It just totally cut off. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Christian,
I can share.
Okay.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can share.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So while Christian pulls it up, this is the 2021 legislative platform for the General Assembly session. And The session begins in January for 90 days, and there's usually about 2,000 legislative bills introduced every year, and of that, about 400 or so bills are related to education in some fashion. And as soon as Christian pulls it up, I'll talk about the development of the platform. I speak with various organizations, elected officials. I spoke with we had our public forum on November 12th, where we had the public come in. Thanks, Christian. You can go to the second page. So we had our public input with the legislative forum on November 12th, but I want everyone to know that that's not the only time that board members and myself speak with the public. We hear about things that everyone wants to see in the legislative session throughout the year. I meet with elected officials throughout the year, the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, along with PASAM, which is the Public School Superintendents Association of Maryland. That's the organizations that deal with a lot of our statewide issues that we belong to. I met this year with the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City, and I'm sure that the student commissioner will talk about that later on. One of the things that they brought up, well, they brought up several issues. We had a good conversation. A lot of things related to areas that could be within regulations or within the oversight of the school board, such as having more time to explore career options. But they also talked about the student voting rights for the student commissioner. And I'll get to that when I talk about the city-state partnership later on in my presentation. The Parent Community Advisory Board, I met with them. Unfortunately, only the chair of PCAB was available to meet, but his major concern was about MTA and maintaining transportation for our students. And again, I'll speak more specifically about that later on. And I also met with Ms. Winstead from the Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee as well. Next page. So here are the major issues that I see coming up this session. This is going to be a very strange session, as we all know. This has been a very strange year, and we will have an opportunity to look at the blueprint for Maryland's future. As you know, Kerwin was a commission that looked at the delivery of education in the state of Maryland for the last 3 or 4 years, and they finally came out with a bill that provided additional funding for community schools, for mental health. It was a $2.8 billion 10-year plan to completely revamp education. Unfortunately, the governor, because of the global pandemic and because of the additional money that was being spent to deal with the COVID crisis, he did veto that legislation, and I'll talk more about we need to override that veto. Coupled with that was Built to Learn Act, which was a huge program that was legislation passed that allowed school construction funds. Baltimore City would have received about $420 million to move toward our second phase of our 21st century. But unfortunately, the Built to Learn Act was tied to the Blueprint bill. So once the Blueprint bill was vetoed, the Built to Learn Act was not passed or just died during session or after session, excuse me. Also the budget, obviously capital and operating. We're going to have to look at some funding formula modifications. As you know, enrollment drives funding for school districts. And because of what's happening, a lot of school districts, I would say every school district has lost some enrollment, and some have lost hundreds, some have lost thousands of kids. And so we need to make sure that that loss of enrollment because of this special year doesn't impact our funding for the upcoming year as well as future years, because of maintenance of effort is tied to all the funding throughout the state of Maryland. Also, hold harmless. So Baltimore City, it's not just a funding issue because of enrollment, but for the last 2 years, the governor has, on his own, and it wasn't mandated, provided hold harmless dollars to us. $11 million 2 years ago and $7 million last year to allow us to stay neutral so we didn't lose any funding. So we have to look and make sure that with any major funding challenges that we have, that it's not just enrollment, that we also have to make sure that we look to the hold harmless efforts to make sure that we stay whole. Adequacy of funding, that all plays into ensuring that not only enrollment, but our maintenance of effort and our funding calculations are modified to ensure that we do not lose any money. Our capital improvement program funding, that's our school construction plan. Every year, the General Assembly will look at that plan and provide funding for school districts. And this year we had about $107 million funding request. We typically get about $34 million from the state. Bridge to Kerwin, I'll talk about the continuation of that if we do have to modify the blueprint bill and push it out further years, because we were given additional dollars over the last few years from the city of Baltimore and from the state to allow us to hold on until Kerwin was passed. And if Kerwin does not pass, we still need to make sure that we are not harmed in any manner. Broadband, digital access, the COVID has shown everyone that there's this huge discrepancy between rurals and as well as urban jurisdictions when it comes to access to the internet. And I know leadership, and when I say leadership, that's the Senate President and the House Speaker, are all on board on trying to figure out a way or to try and do some funding or something to provide greater access. Every year we deal with unfunded mandates. Those are things that the legislature wants us to do, but they don't provide any money for, and it would cost us additional dollars to do it. So that's something that we're always on the lookout for. Police reform, I put that on the slide this year because, as you know, police reform is a big issue in the United States. And also because we have our own school police, any changes or modifications to police reform could potentially impact Baltimore City School Police. So we all need to be on the lookout for any changes there and provide input. And then lastly was the continuation of the city-state partnership. Next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, the blueprint and built to learn were tied together. In order to override the veto, within the first 30 days of session, the General Assembly has to come together, and 3/5 of the Senate and 3/5 of the House must agree and vote to override that veto. But also, should the veto be overridden, there will need to be modifications to the Kerwin bill or blueprint bill because of many of the implementation dates are to start within a year or two. And because of what's going on with the financial crisis, they may need to push some of those back, but we still need to look to make sure if they do push those back, we still need to ensure that our concentration of poverty grants and our mental health grants and things that we've gotten so far are not pushed back as well. And again, built to learn, should they override the veto for override the veto for the blueprint bill, the built to learn will then be active. And there shouldn't be any need to make any changes to that legislation because I do not believe the bonds were to be, the Stadium Authority was supposed to take out the bonds beginning in January of 2021. January 2022. So that bill should be fine once the blueprint bill is overridden. Next page. So again, I just wanted to give an overview of the state budget. Based on which scenario you look at, there's about a $1.6 to $2.6 billion budget gap in the state based on COVID and all the actions they've had to take. This is for FY22, which is the year that we're coming into with the 21 General Assembly session. Everybody's looking for the federal government to provide some relief. They are hopeful that with the incoming president, that he will be able to do something similar to what was done in 2007, 2008, when they had the American Reinvestment Funds Act was provided when we had the Great Depression or Great Recession, I should say, in 07 and 08. So we're hoping that there should be some federal money coming at some point at early part of next year. We also, as I mentioned before, modifications of the formulas and the hold harmless for operating funds. There is something in the current upcoming budget that sets aside $370 million in FY22 for implementation of the Kerwin bill. But again, there's no procedures about how the governor should spend that money. And then he could also introduce, based on what our budget looks like, what they call a Budget Reconciliation Financing Act bill, which would then modify the use of that money, change the policy related to the use of that money, and use it to fill other gaps. But we still have to look and determine what to do once we find out what the budget looks like from the state. And we usually get that in the middle of January. One thing that did help with some of the enrollment counts this year was the state board's decision to allow those students that did not give proof of immunization to be included for funding. So this did help some jurisdictions with some of the loss of their enrollment, but it's still not enough. Next slide. So Bridge to Kerwin, this is what I mentioned earlier, that should the blueprint bill not pass, or they don't override the veto, or they push the implementation back, we had this Bridge to Kerwin, which allowed all the additional funds you see here to be provided to the city schools to help us ensure that our kids received adequate resources. It was $22 million in FY18, all the way up to $20 million in FY20. We also are right now allowing our students to ride the MTA free of charge to the city of Baltimore, that the state of Maryland is picking up that cost right now. And so should there be some issue with Kerwin, we definitely want to be able to continue the MTA transportation costs. Next slide. So then one of the final areas I wanted to talk about tonight is the city-state partnership. And you do have the full legislative platform online. It's much more detailed than this, but these were just the highlights. But for the city-state partnership, you know that we will become in line with all the other school districts beginning in FY22. Right now, 19 school districts are fully elected and 4 are hybrid, which means they are partially elected, partially appointed. In 2016, we changed and we agreed to change the structure of the school board to allow for 2 citywide school board members to be elected. In 2017, we also modified the appointment process where we removed the governor from the appointment process, and now the mayor selects the members. And you can see here all the organizations that are part of this community panel that makes the recommendations to the mayor. So you have BTU, you have the AFSCME, that's fine. You have City Council, Downtown Family Alliance, the Fund for Educational Excellence, next slide, the mayor's office, Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City. It's a very wide array of organizations that do make the recommendation. And next slide. And so the last thing I wanted to talk about is the difficulties that will appear this session with the procedures. Ordinarily, everyone's allowed in the House and Senate buildings and in the State House to meet legislators and talk to them. We sit in on committee hearings and subcommittee hearings. This year, because of what's happening, we will not be able to do that. So, but they will live stream all bill hearings and committees and subcommittee meetings. We will have bill files available online. All testimony will be provided via Zoom. It's still going to be very different and difficult to get to people, but we'll just figure out the best way to do it. The great thing is that we have the Senate President is Bill Ferguson from Baltimore City's 46th District, and as well as we have the House Speaker, who is, while she's from Baltimore County, she's been very pivotal in working with Baltimore City, and she has consistently and always been there for Baltimore City. So I think we'll be okay, but I just want to let you know that it will be a challenge this year, more so than anything else. And I want to conclude with, lastly, I know I talked about the city-state partnership, but part of what we discussed, or I have been discussing with the student commissioner, is his desire to have full voting rights for the student member on the school system, on the school board. Right now, Anne Arundel County is the only school board that has full voting rights. Montgomery County, their student can vote on everything but personnel. And so I did not make any changes to the current platform, but I do what the board would like me to do. And anything in this platform is not solidified. You can change it. As I say, it's a living and breathing document that if the board would like to make any changes or make any recommendations or change any recommendations I've made, please let me know and we will do that. But that's it for tonight. And now all I ask is if there are any questions or any comments, and then to approve the 2021 platform.
Thank you. Just a reminder, as you said, that the full document is available on Board Docs. Any questions, comments?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Roberts.
Go ahead, Commissioner Roberts.
For the sake of or in compliance with Open Meetings Act, I would love to hear Kyrie speak to his desire to be granted full voting rights. I think that's something that the public should be aware of. That's something that every commissioner should hear from Kyrie. And not to put you on the spot, Kyrie, but this is your platform.
Thank you. So I would like to first start off by saying that thank you all for that I have spoken to, and I do apologize that I have my camera having some connection issues. But my desire is to have full student voting rights for the fact that I'm the student representative on behalf of 79,000 plus students, and I feel as though that I can reach my peers, reach my families and communities by relaying the messages from the board to my peers and my people in a way that they'll understand. And I think that student voice should be included in everything we do. This is not something that is just solely for the administration to make decisions on, and things of that nature. It has been a big priority for me to figure out a way to reach my peers and collaborate with them and talk to them and get a voice from them and see how they feel about issues. But they oftentimes come to me with questions that I can't answer because I wouldn't technically have the information on it. They oftentimes ask to me why when we have roundtable discussions, why are you the only they ask question, why is it that Baltimore City we have a board of commissioners when other regions have SMART members, and why are we have a CEO and other people have superintendents? And sometimes I get the thing that we just think of it as a privilege. This is good for us that we have people who can really impact us and really support us within the things that we want. But like I was saying, I really feel as though that I can reach my scholars and reach my peers in a way that no one else can, because it's coming from a student perspective. So it's like a face-to-face A to B conversation, so student to student, and we can have those conversations that a student might not be able to have with a board commissioner or with the principal or with the teacher. I want to be that bridgeway, that the interconnection between students, staff members, and administration, because oftentimes we have students that don't want to speak before the board. We have students that aren't comfortable with doing it. So I have no issue being that voice because I'm a very much so outspoken person. And leadership, I feel as though leadership is my calling. And another thing is many student commissioners of SMARTs throughout the nation, they are given full voting rights, but not on personnel, which is completely understandable for me. But one thing that I was coming to is, why aren't we having a student helping to make these decisions, to look at these people that we're having running our school, run our district, because ultimately they're affecting us. They are the people who make the decisions that'll affect what happened with us. And I feel as though that a student should have that input of who helps run their school, who helps run different programs within Baltimore City Public Schools. And another thing is, many people might not know that you have to be 18 to be a board commissioner. So I feel as though if I'm a few months from that, I think that I have the knowledge and the ability to execute the position of full voting rights and to sit with commissioners and have the roundtable discussion and really put it in a way that students and staff members will understand. So that's really just one of my big things this year. I just really want to reach my peers and really get them to understand how as a student commissioner I can support them, and I definitely want to be that person who holds the board accountable for the decisions that they make and the things that they want to do, because I'm their representative. And although every student might not be happy, but I feel as though if I can reach at least one student, that I've executed my position. But the person I am, I would like to figure out a way to reach all of the students and help all of them. So that's just something really big that I'm working on. So I feel as though that I have the knowledge, the courage, and the ability to execute having full voting rights for the student commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Thank you, Commissioner Sykes. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I do have a question. I am in complete agreement that we should have, our student reps should have full voting rights to participate. And so, DeWanda, from your perspective, you named that, I think you said like one of the counties had a student in which they did that. Like, could you talk about the landscape a little bit in terms of like how they were able to achieve that? And is there any sort of like, any ways in which we might need to maneuver to sort of position ourselves to not only just have one student rep, but then also possibly more?
Well, Anne Arundel County has always had a student member with full voting rights. I mean, I think when the board was first formed, it's been many years. Montgomery County, within the last couple of years, they had a modification to their law to allow the student to have voting rights on everything but personnel, and that's and it's really just up to a local jurisdiction, a local school board to decide if that's something that they want, and then legislation is enacted, and it first goes through the local delegation, and then should it pass out of the local delegation, then through local courtesy, it will more than likely pass in the General Assembly. But the landscape with Montgomery County was, again, it was a student member that thought, like Commissioner Sykes, they would have the ability to vote on everything because it allows them to hear everything to make better informed decisions.
Great. So I think and this is just really helpful for me because so what I wasn't clear about, and I think some of the discourse that has been floating around, that it is really the state that makes the decision. So you're saying that it's coming to us. So we decide as a board that this is what we want, and then we pass it through to our legislative body. So, okay, and that's not how that's been framed. And so this is actually invaluable information. So it sounds like we've just been sitting on some, we could have had a full member at many moons ago.
Well, it also, you have to have the school board, you have to have the majority of your school board members to agree to do that.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I just want to make, I would just make that clarification, Commissioner Brooks. It hasn't been that we've been sitting on it, but it has not been a majority decision or request on part of the board.
Okay, so when was the last time we actually voted on whether or not the student commissioner should have full voting rights?
Well, I've presented the platform for the last many years, and there's never been a discussion about modifying that because I think there's never been a majority of the board that wanted to make that change.
Okay, thank you so much. This is really helpful.
Commissioner Bondima?
Just to have, thank you. I just wanted some input into it. I think that what we probably need to do is do some research on how did Anne Arundel or Montgomery County come to the point through the years that they allowed a board member to vote on all of the except the PEP or except the personnel, because each board, you have to look at the fact that each board member, before they are appointed to the board, are evaluated for many reasons with a committee to determine different information. And we need to find out what is it that the other boards that have a student, what process they go through to allow a student to participate, because I think it would be a great idea. But we want to make sure that it's not just the board members that make the decision. We need to go through the process of who else is involved in making that decision before it takes conversation and evaluation for us to get to that point. So because I think that Commissioner Sykes will make is wonderful, but I think that we need to go through the proper steps before we come to that conclusion.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Roberts?
Yes, I had one last comment about full student voting rights. I think where we are as a school board is not considering if the student will get full voting rights, but when. And I think in moving that forward, I'm not sure who that is that has that background noise. Somewhere. I'm not sure, but it's distracting. But Joanna, I think it would be very helpful for the full board to have the supplemental professional development opportunities that a student commissioner would need to best utilize those voting rights in those respective areas that they've never explored before, in terms of procurement, in terms of process and things like that, so that as we're considering as a board what that looks like and including students in full voting rights, the supports that they will need to best maximize that experience.
I think I understand, but I know that should the student get full voting rights, then they would have the same access to like MABE training. And I think MABE also has student training as well available. So, and of course, Christian and the board office will support the student in any manner that they need. But as far as like what the procurement means, what the budget looks like, I mean, tutorials, that's something that we would do in-house and to make the student feel more comfortable in whatever decisions they would need to do.
But to that, Joanna, I've been saying, I know for even MABE trainings that I've attended, those meetings, those workshops, those conferences, they happen during the day, during traditional student, like class hours, learning hours. And so that essentially is a barrier to, their progress or just their accessibility to even participate. And so to that same point, I would just like to have more framing around what that could look like, instead of just kind of throwing in a student into a world of unknownness for them at a very understanding this is still a student, right? They come in, sometimes they're 15, sometimes they're 16, and to expect them to have the amount of freedom, the amount of accessibility that we do, or, sometimes that we have to make ourselves become accessible for, it's just not unfair, and it sets them up for failure. And so I'd like to see some of those support or their lack of as we're considering what that looks like for the next steps.
And I can reach out to Montgomery County to see also, since they most recently changed it, to see how they coordinated a lot of this.
Thank you, Dewana.
I see Commissioner James. Commissioner Sykes, your hand is up. Is that, and Commissioner Bondima, are they still up or are you raising them again?
I'm raising mine again, but I'll wait after Commissioner Hassan.
So after Commissioner James, I'll come back to Commissioner Sykes.
So a couple of things. One, just to remember in this process that while Kyrie is in the role and very capable right now, that this is a much longer term decision that is not person specific at all. The one thing I would add to what Commissioner Roberts said is though that I think we do need to have a discussion about whether it's full or partial full voting rights. And that's in part to protect Kyrie or the student commissioner. If they're voting on employment, they could be voting on their teachers or their principals. And knowing that those are people they may need letters of recommendation for college to, or things that if they get an ethical challenge around that could be very problematic for the future for that young person. So I'm not saying, where we should draw the lines of if full is 100% everything, or if full is everything except employment issues or things like that. But I think we do have to have that conversation so that we can move forward with the best of getting both the students to have a full human presence on the board, as well as to protect them moving forward of any liability that might come out of employment law.
Okay. Commissioner Sykes?
Can you hear me? Okay, so first I really want to say, give a shout out to Commissioner Roberts and Commissioner McFadden, because they have been very much so supportive within my visions for myself and the upcoming student commissioners and even Baltimore City Public Schools, period. I have had the ability to not only learn, but take what they have taught me and put it into action. They have given me so many ideas and so many leadership opportunities and everything like that. But I think what my ask was that I have full votes on everything but disciplinary and negative personnel. And I do, and I understand what you all say 100% when it comes to we might be making a decision on a principal or teacher that might affect us within our future. But is that, I think my question would be, when you all make these decisions, is it anonymous, like how we, because these are sessions that is solely for the board. So when we make these decisions, is it that whoever that principal, that teacher might be, do they know that who said yes or who said no, or who said, I think they should have this much, or who didn't? Do they know that information or no?
We generally do the discussion in the executive session. So no, the vote is usually a part of the consent. But I would also say that even as non-student commissioners, there are times when a relationship or whether it's business or personal moves a commissioner to sometimes recuse themselves from a vote. So I think those are things that we, to Commissioner Roberts' point and Commissioner James's point, some things that we need to check into and probably discuss more, and really get a sense of fully of what it is that the board is asking us to look for. But those are the discussions are executive. That's why the chair reads that whole portion to go into executive session around those areas because they are confidential.
Okay.
And this is Bundy. I just want to say one other thing. We also would have to check with the legal department as well.
And also, currently, the law does not allow, Baltimore City's law does not allow the student commissioner to attend executive sessions. So that would have to be modified as well, along with any voting issues.
Okay. So I'm gonna do. Can we do one more comment and then, commissioners? This is not a discussion that we're going to be able to end this evening. I think we've gotten a lot of information and a lot of suggestions as to things that we need to do for follow-up, and that we can direct Ms. Durrett to take a look at, and that we will bring back to the board for more consideration. And so is there something different that we want to add to this before we move generally in terms of approving the legislative slate that's been presented? Commissioner Brooks and then Commissioner, all of your hands back up again, because we do need to move.
Right.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yeah, so I guess all I was going to say is that I just wanted to be very clear, because when we've been having these conversations about student right and full access, it has always been cast as an external actor besides our board that had the decision to determine whether or not that particular student could participate. And so I just want us to be clear and particularly pay attention to the discourse, because this is new information to me. If it was up to us, I think we could have done exactly what Commissioner Roberts says. Let's talk about what we need as an infrastructure to make sure that the capacity is right, to make sure that the student commissioner is well supported and moving forward. And that just ticked me off a little bit, because I feel like it's been every time we've inquired about this from the board level, I've always gotten a different answer than today.
Okay.
And so
But Commissioner Brooks, I need to say, I don't know where the inquiry has gone, but as a board, we have not had that discussion lately. It has come up this time, and it has come straight to the board, but I don't recall previous recommendations or requests for us as a board to do that in the time that I've been board chair. So I just need to say that clearly. And I don't know why the perception is different than it is, but we do know that the board can make the recommendation. The board can move towards wanting the legislation, but it does have to go to the General Assembly.
And Madam Chair,
yeah.
Madam Chair, I'm going
So
to say.
please let me go in order, Commissioner, because there's so many hands up right now. I see you. I'll
No,
come
I
back.
just agree with you. That's all I'm saying. I agree with you.
Okay, thank you. So Commissioner Brooks, we will follow up on it now, but this is the first time that it has come to our attention with this board. Commissioner Roberts.
I'm going to shift a bit to the broadband digital access. Dewana, that is something that we've been talking about since the spring. That's something that over the summer the board has definitely taken a position on in terms of it being a collective effort. So much so that we've taken a position that at this stage in the game, it should be recognized as a public utility. How are we able to join with our new mayor, Mayor Scott, and having an all hands on deck approach to this for this legislative session? How could the board maximize our partnerships, our families, our community members, and the various stakeholders to not only understand the complexities to this issue, but the impact of what a decision of that sort could look like and be for our families?
I think it's with the mayor's office, now that he has a legislative team in place, I believe he has, or he's starting to put one in place. We usually meet prior to the legislative session to kind of each talk about what the major issues are. As I mentioned earlier, that the legislative leaders, meaning the President of the Senate and the House Speaker, they're looking to do something legislatively that would be introduced based on their behalf. So that gives whatever happens more weight and gravitas to whatever is introduced. But then we need to make sure that when we talk with them, I need to talk with our internet folks, the mayor's office, to figure out exactly what Baltimore City needs to see in that legislation. I know we need funding, but what does that funding look like? I know we need to have Comcast be in on this as well, and talking with the Comcast representatives. I think that's where we get the heavy weight of the speaker and the president to be involved. Making it a public utility also requires some federal legislation. It's not just simple. I've spoken to to Senator Cardin's office like several months ago, talking with them about what would need to happen on the federal level to make this be a public utility. So all this is happening in the midst of a global pandemic. So we're still trying to figure it all out, and still make sure there's funding to ensure that we get our medical stuff and our medical supplies and our PPE together as well, along with digital access. So I don't have a definitive answer, but it's being worked on and discussed.
Thank you, Dewana.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there any other discussion? If not, is there a motion that we approve the item 8.05, and that's the platform with the knowledge that we are going to get additional information and have further discussion around the issue of student voting rights?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. Is there a second? Thank you.
Thank you, Duana, for your work.
Thank you.
And those in favor, Commissioner Bondima,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes,
Yes.
and I am in favor. We have no one opposed or abstaining, so we have 8 in favor, 2 absent, and this item is approved. Thank you. And Mr. Rett, we'll look forward to the follow-up information
Thank you all.
for the board. Thank you. Thank you for the work. And thank you to folks who were a part of the discussions to lead up to this. And a reminder again that this is posted. Is there now a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Is there a second?
Second, Bondima.
Thank you. And those in favor, Commissioner Bondima,
Yes.
Brooks,
Yes.
James. I see you shaking. Okay. McFadden,
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
And I'm in favor. And we have no one opposing or abstaining. So we have 7 in favor and 2 absent. Thank you all. Okay. Thank you. That was, we had quite a bit of discussion around these items, but I thank you for that. It was rich discussion. We're going to move to, we have 2 additional information items. So the first one will be from the Office of New Initiatives, and it's for operator waiver and cap request.
Good evening. I'm Angela Alvarez. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of New Initiatives.
I'm Trevor Roberts. I'm a specialist in the Office of New Initiatives.
And
several times a year, our office takes requests from charters and other operator-led schools on waivers. And these can be in several different areas. It could be a waiver of district policy, changes to the school's programming, or changes to their enrollment capacity. When we receive these waivers, we look at several key considerations. The first is evidence of demand for the change, the school's rationale about how the change meets the school need, evidence of how stakeholders were involved in vetting and approving the request, the quality of the programming offered by the school, and the school's capacity to implement the change. So areas such as staffing, facility, and areas like that. So the first step in the process is obviously the school will submit their request to the Office of New Initiatives. We will determine whether or not the request meets established guidelines. So is the request in an area where the charter has autonomy? Would it be against state or federal guidelines, things like that? We then vet the requests with key departments in the district. The requests are shared with the charter and operator-led advisory board for further vetting. And tonight we'll be presenting the requests to the board, and the board will be voting on these requests on January 12th. So tonight we'll be looking at 3 enrollment requests. The first is from Baltimore Montessori Public Charter School. They are a school that serves students in grades pre-K through 8. Just as a reminder, these enrollment requests do only apply to grades K through 12. The school has a pre-K program that serves students as young as 3, but these enrollment requests are do not take pre-K into account. The school has a contract that runs through school year 2021-22. Their currently approved cap for that year is 408 students, and they're requesting an increase of that to 441 students, which is a change of 33 additional students.
Yep. Just one thing before just to be clear, I just want to clarify that point that Trevor is making. The enrollment request, when it comes to the cap, to the funded enrollment, does not include pre-K because the way school funding works, it's based on K-12. But we have to consider the full enrollment because it does impact the entire school. And so part of what we consider is capacity, like, for example, the facility, teaching staff for these requests. So we have to look at it holistically for all the students that are served, everyone that's in the grade. But when it comes to the cap that controls funding, that's relevant through K through 8. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that nuance.
The next request is coming from Clay Hill Public Charter School. Clay Hill is a new charter school that will be opening in the fall of 2021. Their original enrollment plan had them opening with grades K through 2 with a total of 225 students. They are now requesting a slightly higher cap of 240 in that first year, and to start with grades K through 3 and expanding an additional grade level year by year until they reach their full K through 8 grade band that they were approved for. So you can see here how the difference in enrollment changes year to year. And our final request that we're presenting tonight is for Independence Local 1 High School. It is a high school serving grades 9 through 12. This school also has a contract that runs through 2021-22. Their cap for that year is 150. They're requesting an increase to 175 for a difference of 25 additional students. So again, the board will be voting on these requests on January 12th. Are there any questions or comments on any of these requests?
Hello, this is Commissioner Roberts. My question is about Clay Hill.
Mm-hmm.
So they have, I think it's, I'm sorry, I'm trying to bring it back up. I can't find which tab I had. Thank you so much. For their waiver request, they like to add additional students for the next 5 school years. I guess my only question here is, with a school that has not opened yet, is this, is it best practice? Does this actually make sense to consider for a school that has yet to open?
Yeah. So it's okay. I think it's okay for people to amend thinking through, like, just kind of where you are in time. Part of the vetting process and what we'll share when we come back for the vote, right? Like, it's that kind of evaluation is, have they provided evidence to show they're going to be able to meet that demand and capacity? Do they have the space to meet that demand and capacity? You do want to be cautious and like changing, but sometimes it's appropriate just given cost and just kind of where you are in point in time. And the more relationship where you are with your community, you may kind of revisit, like, on an annual basis. Schools can make kind of enrollment requests to the board, and some have come repeatedly within a contract term, just based on things that are happening on ground. It's also one way that they can has a direct impact on funding to deal with, like, funding challenges that could be there. For them, part of their rationale for including the 3rd grade is that remember this school was delayed a year from opening, so they still have committed families that they're indicating are expressing interest in remaining with the school whose children now are in third grade. And so like that's part of what you're seeing play out in this request is they want to be able to, when they open, have those families be able to be part of the school, given that kind of with the delay. So that's part of the reason that you see this request coming to us.
Okay, because for me, the disconnect was the actual request for the delay to open and then asking for the subsequent years for there to be an increase with a school that is yet to open. And so there was a big disconnect for me without seeing, for school year 21, what those numbers would look like before we approve adding additional students for subsequent years.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to consider those things. And so that, again, when we come back for the vote, we'll share like the considerations, what evidence they had, right, to show that they can meet that demand. I think it's reasonable for you to ask that question and to contemplate that in your decision making when it comes back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarez.
You're welcome.
Commissioner James, I see your hand.
Thank you. Do we have any potential impact data on Dallas Nichols of adding seats to Baltimore Montessori? I know last time we had a seat cap increase from them, there was an anticipation of a fairly substantial impact on Dallas Nichols.
Yeah, so that would be part of like what we include again from that vetting process before you vote. So you'll see the results of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then on top of that, if we know any of those parents that might have changed from Dallas Nichols to Baltimore Montessori, if they would have left the district if that couldn't have happened. I don't know if there's a way to capture that kind of data.
I don't know. Not confident we'll be able to answer that question. We could probably see from a numbers perspective if there are families from Dallas Nicholas who are now at Montessori. But I don't know. I don't think we'll be able to, just honestly, I don't think we'll be able to answer that more nuanced question.
Yeah, and I don't think that we necessarily have to have an answer, but I think we should still be asking ourselves the question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I encourage board members and others. You could send in the questions. You saw on the slide how to send those in. We'll be actually voting on this on January the 12th. Here's the slide again. And so if there are other things that you need to know, please don't hesitate to send it in to Ms. Alvarez's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Our last information item is from the Finance Office for Board Policy DMA, School Activity Fund, and this is also a first reader. Is it Ms. Walker? Are you the presenter?
Yes, I am the presenter working with Courtney Desabay. Courtney?
All right.
Are you still here, Courtney?
Yes, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, my name is Courtney Desabay. I'm the special assistant to CFO Chris Doherty in finance. Deputy CFO Marianne Cox is still out on medical leave, so Ms. Walker has graciously allowed her time to be used this evening so she could help us out and present this. So she's been working with Deputy Cox on the policy. She also works directly with the schools, and she does a lot of the training for safe books for the schools. I did want to point out before she gets started, we received some very good feedback at policy committee. So there are a couple items that we've incorporated in this first reader. There were two specific things that were asked for by first reader. One of them is principal engagement. So we're working with the chief of schools office to schedule some principal engagement. We're going to do a principal focus group again so they can get another crack at the policy after the initial feedback that they provided in its development. The other item was some more specific guidance or examples with regards to sort of the do's and do nots, like things that can be spent on or not spent on. So we included that in the regs. So those are the two main things. One other item of particular interest that came up in conversation policy committee was crowdfunding. And we've had some subsequent conversations with other departments, legal and Chief Hyde Carbert's department, with regards to crowdfunding and crowdsourcing in general. So it's not included in this policy, but it is something that we're looking at as a district because it does impact a number of other policies and procedures as it becomes more popular as well. So with that, I'm going to let Ms. Walker go into the presentation, and we'll be available to support and answer questions at the end as well.
Thank you, Courtney. The School Activity Fund is designed to promote the general welfare of students and also to facilitate any normal extracurricular activities of the school. Usually the money that you see in the School Activity Fund are either from fundraisers or student paying for activities. Sometimes schools will get a grant and they also get donations. The School Activity Fund is also part of the audit that the schools are that the city schools is required to do each year. So what we do with city schools, and as far as reporting is concerned, it also includes the School Activity Fund. And as Courtney said before, we conducted a focus group, a couple focus groups with elementary and high school teachers, just to see what were some of the items that presented problems for them in completing the school, in completing Safe Books, which is the accounting system, and also just managing the School Activity Fund in general. Also, we received feedback from the Internal Audit Department. Internal Audit performs the audit for Safe Books for schools, and they give feedback as to what some of the findings are. And so we've made adjustments based on their findings also. Some of the challenges that principals and people who do School Activity Fund is how to handle funds from vending machines. I know there have been some changes with food and nutrition. There are no longer vending machines available for students, but vending machines are still in teacher lounges. And so the Pepsi company, who is the chief vendor, I guess, for the district, they send small checks like quarterly for what schools earn on those vending machines. And what we have sought to do and to clarify is to how those funds are handled in the general ledger in Safe Books for the school. So what we decided to do, and based on the teacher feedback, is that they have a separate general account that they can use to track what they have and also their spending. Some of the administrative regulations, the how-to, is how are disbursements to principals handled, what are the signature requirements for disbursements, what is the process for voiding checks, and how do we handle school closings and also the change in principals. And one big item is Safe Books training. The community stakeholders regarding this, again, as we said, we did the focus group meetings, and we also met with the board policy committee for recommendations, and they made suggestions. And we also had a meeting with PCAB, the Parent Community Advisory Board, to get some feedback from them also. Some of the proposed changes regarding the board policy is updating the definition of receipt summary. In other words, when we receive money from a teacher for a particular activity, the receipt summary has her outline everything those funds are for. And also, we changed the wording in the School Activity Fund to say that we can set up a separate general ledger account in Safe Books for any monies that teachers are collecting through the vending machines. And regarding policy standards, wording has been updated to require that all expenses be paid with a check, and each check for distribution has to have the corresponding documentation. Also, another administrative regulation that we've talked about is receipts. We clarified the language for using pre-numbered receipts for monies collected. Again, pre-numbered receipts. It's not to say that receipts weren't being used before. Now they had to be pre-numbered. And we also talked about the issuance of pre-numbered receipt books. In other words, the principal has to provide a numbered receipts for all teachers who are collecting funds for different school activities. And also we stated that you must maintain 3 copies of the receipts. 1 receipt goes with the deposit for those funds, 1 receipt stays with the teacher, and of course 1 receipt goes into the safe books. And we also added language for use of the receipt summary. Again, as we said before, the receipt summary is outlining everything that receipt covers, instead of just having, here's a receipt for $40, but we need to know what that $40 represent. And also we updated the language in the process of safeguarding undeposited monies, meaning that they must be locked up, they must be secured, and must be in an area that has limited access. Regarding deposits and the administrative regulations, we added language to state that the time frame for deposits were under $250. And we also added language for a requirement of a validated deposit slip. What we found some schools were doing, they were just going by what was on the bank statement, but we're asking the principals to validate what's on that bank statement with what's on the validated deposit slip for those funds. And that means that they must get a deposit slip receipt from the bank. And we also updated the language for restricted use of undeposited collections. In other words, if they've collected money for a particular item or for a particular event, you cannot use it for anything else than what that specific purpose is for. And we updated the language on how to handle return checks. The language wasn't clear before, but now we're stating that if a check is returned and you collect the money plus the return check fee, you must do that in a separate deposit from any other money that you're depositing at that time. Regarding disbursements, what we did that we clarified the procedure for reimbursements to principals and the data fields for a check or voucher request form. We've just tightened up the language, and we've also put items on the request form that schools have to fill out. And we updated the requirements for disbursements, meaning that you must have a receipt, you must have a check request form that has to be filled out and signed before disbursement can be made. And also we added language for the security and recording of checks. Again, checks must be in a secured location. Checks must be either duplicate, or you must have a check that has a receipt side on it that you fill out each time a check is written. And we also add examples of allowed and not allowed disbursements based on the policy committee recommendations. You're allowed to do a disbursement for a student activity. You're not allowed to pay for a locksmith to come to the school. You're not allowed to pay for paint for the cafeteria. So we just added a little language around those kind of exceptions and what you can and cannot do. We also added types of bank accounts. We included money market certificates, and also we included savings accounts. We don't see too much of that with elementary schools. I haven't seen it yet, even with a high school, but because there are so many different financial vehicles you can have, we updated that to say what kind of bank accounts you had. And we also added language to verify ledger balances and safe books. In other words, when schools are writing checks, we're asking them to write the checks against the ledger balance and safe books, and not just what's in the checkbook. So they must verify both, make sure they're the same. We clarified language for the principal's review of accounts or checks on the monthly bank statement. Again, what we have found that when schools are balancing safe books, they're going by what's on the statement, but not necessarily looking at what the checks that were written that month. So we just clarified the language and tightened that up so that they must look at both. And we updated the language to state that principals should sign and date the bank reconciliation. Each month, right now, statements are being reconciliation reporting to the district is done on a semi-annual basis. And of course, you'll see further along that we're going to change that. But we're asking them to do now is to reconcile every month, sign the statement, and sign the reconciliation report, and make sure that it's verified against what the bank statement is. In other words, reconcile every month instead of trying to do 2 and 3 months at a time when it's time to turn in the report. Another thing that we've had a lot of feedback on from principals is that what happens when a school closes? And we updated the process in SafeBooks, how to reconcile when a school closes. And we also clarified the language for that reconciliation. In other words, if a school is closing, the principal must close the bank account, and those funds are distributed to the schools based on where students are transferring to. And also, when there's a new principal coming into a school, we clarified the process for them to obtain access to the bank account. Also, financial reporting, we added language in SafeBooks that when a transaction happens, that's when it should be recorded in SafeBooks. It's not new, it's just that we added language to strengthen it, saying that you must do it. When you write a check, you must record it in SafeBooks. Again, what we found is that some schools, because they're not writing a lot of checks each month, they might not do it till the end of the month, or they might not do it until it's time to do a reconciliation. We're encouraging them to do it when the check is written. That way you're not missing any checks. And it's also a cleaner record of what's happening financially in the school. And also we changed the we changed the reporting frequency. Right now it's semi-annual. We would like it to be quarterly. So quarterly, each principal will have to reconcile their school activity fund and turn in the report into the finance department instead of just doing it twice a year as we do it now. And also we added the language to say that you must keep these records for a certain number of years. Before it said you should, now we're saying you must. And that record retention is for 5 years. A big thing is with training, because principals were not doing reconciliation every month, or they only doing it when a report is done every 6 months, we've identified some additional training needs. So what we've done is that we've determined and added wording who must be trained. In addition to the principal, their designees also must be trained to use school activity fund and also SafeBooks. We've added the different types of training. There's board training, there's administrative training, there's how to use SafeBooks training. And also what we've done is that we're requiring that principals get a refresher every 3 years to keep them on top of whatever changes are happening, and also just to keep them fresh with what's happening with school activity fund and also with SafeBooks training. And also what we're doing also here is that based on audit findings, that we will do additional training around those findings because it might be identifying some deficiencies in the processes and the procedures in a particular school. And also we added a section to address the audit results and who gets to review the audit results. Before the audit results went to finance and it went to the principal, but what we're now doing is that we are including the instructional leadership team member, we're including finance and also the school manager, just to make sure that everyone is aware of what has happened at the school and what we need to do to support the principal to address whatever findings came as a result of the audit. And also, I think a big thing is that finance is identifying one full-time person who will be responsible for monitoring all school activity funds. That would be their primary job. That would be their only job is number one, support principals with training and to monitor all of the funds themselves. Next up, this is our first meeting. We'll be ready for the second meeting in January. And we hope to implement this with final board approval. And of course, principal will be notified when these are approved by the board. Any questions?
First of all, thank you, Commissioner Roberts. I see your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for your presentation, Ms. Walker. My question for the bank account monitoring, will that be the direct contact for the changes that you listed on slide 7 for the reporting of the bank deposit slip? What was it? It was 135, 134, and 5. On slide 7.
And what is your question again?
Will that be the same person as like to add some specificity around who they're reporting to. Is that the same person or the same area of finance that they would be reporting that information to?
This is part of the reconciliation process for a principal, where we added that 1 and 3. This is mainly reporting and also recording as part of the reconciliation. And what we're asking them to do is to have a validated deposit slip. In other words, get it stamped by the bank when you make a deposit, and also to make sure that that deposit slip is attached to and part of the reconciliation for that month.
So at any point, is that information coming back to the district?
That information is not coming back to the district. The district gets a reconciliation report that includes the system report and also a copy of the bank statement for that month. The district does not get the deposit slips themselves. They get like a summary report. Now, when an audit takes place, they look for more detailed information, and they do that deep dive looking for deposit slips, reconciliation reports, reimbursement request forms, transaction forms.
Okay, so 1, 3, 4, and 5 is updated for school-based leaders, but it's in-house.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. I know this is coming for second reader. I just want to say that I want to thank you for this, because I know that this has been one of the areas that has needed to have, as you say, some tightening for a while. And it's good to see that this has happened, especially some of the additional training that I see that's been included. So thank you. And again, this was the first reader. This will come back to us for second reader. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to send those in, and they'll be addressed before we vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, our agenda calls for board committee reports, and I believe the only committee that has met that may have a report is Teaching and Learning. Commissioner McFadden, did you want to give any updates or report out from the recent meeting?
No, ma'am, I would not like to. But I know that you're going to mention the CTE session on Thursday. And I just want to remind folks to attend that and contribute to that, so that we can hear the recommendations that are coming from the Office of College and Career Readiness.
Thank you. Okay. And it was a wonderful cue for me to mention. Commissioner Roberts, did you want to say anything else? I'm sorry.
I only want to add that for the December operations meeting, there is an additional presentation that will be added for the 21st century department in terms of the bond. Christian, help me here. I'm at a loss.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yes, it just deal with some bond refinancing information and possible recommendations.
Did you hear from Madam?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
So I will say, if folks are interested in more details in that one, that operation committee meeting will be on Tuesday, December the 15th, 10:30, and it will be a virtual meeting and is open to the public. I want to go back to, again, as Commissioner McFadden said, there is a CTE board work session, which will be on this Thursday, December the 10th. From 6 to 10. Just for clarification to the public, a work session is a time where the staff will be presenting to the board, and the board will be having discussions and interaction with the staff. This is not a meeting where we will take public comment. However, once those recommendations are there is a process, and there has been an ongoing process for public comment around the CTE work. The policy committee will be meeting on December the 15th, 3:30 p.m. There will be a special meeting of the board for the annual review on Wednesday, December the 16th at 7 p.m. The Parent Community Advisory Board, PCAB, has this December meeting on December 17th at 6:30. Teaching and Learning Committee will meet again. I'm now into the new year. Happy New Year on January the 5th, 2021. Family and Community Engagement Board Forum will be on Thursday, January the 7th. This is a time for talking to the board. The next board meeting will actually be in the new year, the formal board meeting, and that will be on Tuesday, January the 12th at 5 p.m. So we encourage you all, these are posted information for meetings. You can also check as the public on the board docs as well for some of the documents and information that will be at the meetings. Is there any other info? Commissioner Roberts, I see your hand up again. Oh, okay. Okay. Is there any other item or information that we need to bring at this time? I'm going to open for board members. If not, I will gladly have a motion to adjourn. Oh, okay. Is that Commissioner Bondima or Commissioner Roberts? Between the two of you?
I think we both.
We'll take them both. Okay. Is there
With
any
a happy
objection?
birthday to Commissioner McFadden, I'll second.
Oh, happy birthday, Commissioner McFadden. It's today your birthday?
Thank you. My birthday is tomorrow. It is tomorrow, Madam Chair. Thank
you.
you.
Okay. So
Okay,
you can go. You can start your celebration early.
Listen, I'm only taking songs, so if anyone calls me, you all have to sing to me.
I hope everyone heard that.
I won't punish you like
everyone
that.
who's online.
You mean I can sing to you?
Absolutely, Doc.
Uh-oh, you're in trouble now.
Make sure your phone is not on mute, Commissioner McFadden. We'll all be calling in with our tunes. Is there any objection to us adjourning? Well, if not, folks, I'm going to take that as a positive, and we will say good night. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your flexibility. Thank you, board members, for the good discussion this evening. And I know we have a lot of follow-up to do. Thank you, members of the community, for being here, giving us your thoughts, as well as being here to observe our process. And if you don't join us on Thursday, for those of you who don't, I would just like to say, or any of the other meetings this month, please have a very safe holiday. And we'll see you all in the new year. But board members, we'll see you Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Good night, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.
Good night.